Hi everyone, please subscribe to my channel. Blood Immortal Venerable, see playlist for other chapters and novels. I do not translate the novels. Credits goes to original translator and author of the novel. I only make it as an audiobook so it would be easier to just listen while doing other things. Credits goes to the author of the novel. I convert stories to audiobook for mental health, for multitasking purpose, for accessibility and time saving. Listening to audiobook is also beneficial for people who have disability. It improves our listening skills and improve our English comprehension, vocabulary and other things. So, thank you for listening. Thank you and thank you very much for your support. What the hell is this guy going on about? Have your muscles taken over your brain and squeezed up your internal organs? This guy is already mine, alright. Nah, how can you trust someone who was too lazy to stay on his throne? I've had my eye on that kid for a long time, and once I become the supreme god of Olympus, I'm taking him under my wing. Arg, you're barely even a divine being, what can you do for him? Nah, such reckless words. Did your father tell you that? Hey, we have the same father. What are you going on about? Hercules and Ares growled at each other as they bumped heads, looking like opponents with long-standing vendettas against each other even though just moments ago, they had behaved like fellow bodybuilding maniacs, hugging each other and wriggling their copper-colored muscles together while saying things like, "So good to see you, brother." The others had turned their heads at the embarrassing sight. Athena had already left the area. Only Shannon continued watching, turning to look at Yi and Wu with a smirk on his face. Open corner bracket master, aren't you getting too popular? Shannon, open corner bracket yes, shut up, open corner bracket ha ha ha. In the past, Shannon would keep his mouth shut and try to read Yi and Wu's mood whenever Yi and Wu told him off. However, by now, Shannon didn't care about hiding his thoughts. He stood with a bright smile, completely unconcerned. Yi and Wu felt annoyance and anger rising inside him. He grew even more irritated watching Hercules and Ares point and yell at each other as they debated which of them was more handsome or uglier or some such nonsense. Should I just blow them all away? For a moment, Yi and Wu considered using Vigrid to get rid of them. However, he only sighed heavily, and like Athena, decided to just ignore them. Yi and Wu had taken Athena and Ares to Hercules' Resistance Army base. The Resistance forces and Pluto hadn't seen each other in a long time, and they'd hugged each other and wept as they shared a happy moment. It was against this background that Ares and Hercules, who had just confirmed their close friendship by agreeing to defeat the Titans and Gigantes together, fell into a disagreement over a very trivial matter. To them, the matter was simple. They wanted to determine which of them would obtain Yi and Wu. Hercules yelled that he'd chosen to make Yi and Wu his successor. Ares jumped up and down animatedly as he declared his plans to make Yi and Wu his apostle. Despite being the cause of the dispute, Yi and Wu was not interested in either one of the gods. However, this didn't matter to the two, who were at each other's throats. If the gods and demons of the other societies had not been present, the two would have started fighting in earnest. However, the matter didn't stop there. Open hollow corner bracket I tried to let things go as long as I could, but this is my limit. Ever since we were still in the heavenly world, I've always stated that he's mine. I chose him a long time ago, so don't even think about getting close to him. Are you all hoping to get punished? Woof, woof, woof. Agaras and Fenrir injected themselves into Hercules and Ares' shouting match, forcefully staking their claims over Yi and Wu. It did not seem like the argument would end anytime soon. He seems to be getting more and more popular with the guys by the minute. Ha ha ha, should I participate as well? Prince Nezha laughed as he watched the commotion. The longer the argument went on, the deeper the wrinkles in Yi and Wu's forehead grew. In the end, Yi and Wu decided there was no point in intervening, and ignored the four gods to devise a new plan with the others. Athena was not just the goddess of war but also a divine being who possessed vast wisdom and experience in building civilizations. Also, since she'd recently fought the Titans and Gigantes, she knew their internal situation the best. Yi and Wu asked for her advice on how to proceed. I'm against the idea of immediately opening a road to Erebus. As soon as Athena was presented with an opportunity to speak, she immediately uttered these words. The eyes of the meeting participants widened in surprise. Since Athena had just told them that many of the supreme and great gods of Olympus had fled to Erebus, her suggestion seemed odd to them. Yi and Wu's eyes narrowed. May I ask why? He didn't look at Athena but stared at Aegis, which she held in her arms like a precious item. Yi and Wu had asked the three Cyclops brothers to repair Aegis, but Athena didn't put it away even though it was almost fully repaired. Instead, she held it in her arms, and each time her fingertips brushed Aegis' surface, Yi and Wu felt his gaze automatically drawn to the shield. Shannon started giggling and teasing Yi and Wu about openly lusting over someone else just because Adora was not around. In fact, Yi and Wu's feelings for Athena weren't the same as those he felt for Adora. Yi and Wu didn't really see Athena as someone of the opposite sex, and instead, he felt a sense of concern for Athena's well-being, as though they were comrades. She had sympathized the most with his younger brother, and ever since Yi and Wu entered the tower, she had taken care of him like a mother. Yi and Wu couldn't help feeling close to her. Athena looked at Yi and Wu with caring eyes and smiled warmly. However, as she thought of the situation in Erebus, her warm smile turned into a bitter one. We can't open the way to Erebus right now. Even if we find a way, without the appropriate preparation, we'll put the gods on the other side in danger. What does that mean? Hermes opened the way to Erebus. He attempted it knowing that he might fall from the heavens and lose his divinity, and he contracted a deadly divine sickness and is on the brink of death. Everyone's expression became serious, including Yi and Wu's. Hermes, fall from grace, the loss of his divinity, and a divine sickness weren't things they could just gloss over. Yi and Wu was particularly shocked since Hermes was the first god who had established a relationship with him. When the Olympian gods of Poseidon's generation were causing problems for Yi and Wu, Hermes was the one who stood up to protect and defend him. Since Hermes possessed the divine domain of travel and communication, this meant that he was relatively free from the suppression of the law of causality. That was probably why he managed to open a path to Erebus. However, since he used his divine domain even though he didn't have his divine throne, Hermes must have lost a tremendous amount of divine power. I returned to Tartarus because I wanted to fight the Titans and Gigantes, but more importantly, I must find a way to heal Hermes' divine sickness. In an instant, Yi and Wu's eyes lit up. Is there a way? Athena solemnly nodded. Yes, there is. For sure. What is it? You know what it is. Yi and Wu was puzzled. Kronos' corpse. Yi and Wu recalled how the Titans gained the ability to expand their sizes and how a significant portion of Typhon's divine power originated from Kronos. If we can obtain Kronos' divine power, we can cure the divine sickness. We can also replenish the divine power we lost after being deprived of our divine thrones. The former gods of Olympus could restore their power in the same way that the Titans and Gigantes had gained their own power to overthrow them. However, we haven't figured out how to tap into Kronos' power. As Athena spoke in a worried voice, Yi and Wu quickly opened a power. Your power, Purgatory Furnace, has been opened. Whoosh! As the flames erupted in front of Yi and Wu, two souls appeared among them. They were the spirits of Typhon and Cisseus. Open corner bracket arg. Stop, please stop. Anything, I'll tell you anything, please. Open corner bracket, don't think that it's over. Once mother comes back, she'll consume you like food arg. Typhon had been imprisoned in the Purgatory Furnace for quite some time, and he begged Yi and Wu to release him from the constant agony. Cisseus had only been recently imprisoned, and he showered Yi and Wu with curses, showing no signs of exhaustion. Yi and Wu had promised the demonism their egos, not their souls, so he was still torturing them in order to force their egos to collapse. Cisseus had yet to show signs of surrender, but Yi and Wu did not really care. Yi and Wu knew that Cisseus would soon weaken and crumble. Even Typhon, who was the equivalent of a supreme god, could not stand the torture. How long could a small fry like Cisseus hold out? If Yi and Wu increased the intensity of the flames just a little bit more, it would become unbearable for Cisseus. It would probably be enough to add just a little more firepower to Purgatory than what they had been through already. Hey, is this? Athena realized what Yi and Wu had taken out. Her eyes widened in astonishment. Although she'd expected Cisseus to be there, she had never imagined that Typhon would appear in the Purgatory Furnace as well. She was once again reminded of how quickly Yi and Wu was developing. Can't we just ask them? Yi and Wu lifted one corner of his mouth and flicked his finger lightly. The flames of the Purgatory Furnace burned more fiercely. Open corner bracket arg. Open corner bracket damn it arg. Tell me how to extract Kronos' divine power from his corpse. I'll turn the flames off for the one who tells me. Cisseus' spirit shouted at Yi and Wu with a twisted face. Open corner bracket, do you think we'll give in if you threaten? Open corner bracket, Kronos isn't dead. It's only that time has stopped. Before Cisseus could even finish speaking, Typhon had already stepped forward, shouting his reply as he begged for the torture to stop. Yi and Wu sneered at Cisseus. What were you saying? Open corner bracket Typhon, what are you doing? Open corner bracket shut up. Do you understand how much pain I'm in? No matter what, I must be freed from this pain. If you want me to betray Mother Earth, then just say the word. Just release me from this pain. Typhon was so anxious that if he were asked to wag his tail or lick something, he would quickly do it. As if he'd received a great shock, Cisseus did not say anything further. Yi and Wu flashed a smile at them. The more he observed these two, the more he thought the situation ridiculous. These beings, who had thought the world of themselves, were now thoroughly ruined. They possessed little of their previous confidence, and Typhon was even willing to betray his allies. Was all their allegiance to Mother Earth so flimsy and futile? Explain, what do you mean by time? Yi and Wu put out the flames that were causing Typhon pain. Typhon's words shot out as though they had been fired out of a cannon, as though he were afraid that Yi and Wu might reignite the fire again. Open corner bracket B before that, promise me. If I tell you the answer, that this will be the end. Whoosh, arg, wait, fine, I'll tell you, so please. The flames of the purgatory furnace under Typhon were extinguished once more. Typhon's spirit felt disgusted and humiliated at being treated like a low-level being, but he had no other choice at the moment. Open corner bracket I'll explain Kronos' clockwork. Clockwork, open corner bracket yes. In addition to death, Kronos also wielded the divine domain of time. Time is a realm that is almost omnipotent, so he had a great power during his lifetime. It was for this reason that other heavenly societies were wary of Olympus. Typhon's words continued to pour out. Open corner bracket but in the end, even he couldn't handle the overbearing divine domain of time, so he succumbed to its nature and paused. In other words, the spring that kept the clockwork moving stopped. It's similar to dying. Did that clockwork have anything to do with your sudden awakening? Open corner bracket yes. My great mother Mother Earth knew how to rewind the spring to operate the clockwork. I managed to collect Kronos' divine power when she rewound it. Yi and Wu's eyes glittered. If he could rewind the clockwork, Yi and Wu just might be able to cure Hermes' divine sickness and help Athena and the other gods regain divine thrones. Athena's gaze was still fixed on Typhon. What is the method? Open corner bracket that's close corner bracket Typhon's words trailed away. Whoosh. Yi and Wu thought Typhon was thinking of proposing another deal, so he reignited the purgatory furnace. Typhon screamed out urgently, and no, I'm not trying to hide anything. Only Mother Earth and Persephone know how to rewind Kronos' clockwork. Close corner bracket the purgatory furnace's fire flickered and grew hot again. It's true, trust me, why would I hide something after telling you so much? Since Kronos is in a paused state, everything related to him has also fallen into a similar state. This is why anyone who tries to enter Kronos' area is paused and exterminated. Trying to find the clockwork is a fool's errand close corner bracket whoosh. Open corner bracket I'm telling the truth. Arg, please believe me. Typhon's spirit wriggled in the flames as he appealed to Yi and Wu repeatedly. However, as if it weren't any of his concern, Yi and Wu put the purgatory furnace back inside his storage space. Typhon's pain-filled screams and curses disappeared. Athena and others looked at Yi and Wu with their mouths open. It was surprising that Typhon, who had been synonymous with the concept of fear itself, could have fallen so much, but they were even more surprised that Yi and Wu could torment and crush Typhon so casually. As divine beings, they'd never even imagined this would be possible. However, Yi and Wu got up, lightly brushing his behind as if nothing unusual had happened. First off, we need to go to Kronos and find out more about this clockwork. We need to understand what it is. All right, yeah. Athena quickly regained her color and nodded. Pluto and the resistance forces also began preparing to move out. The location of Kronos' corpse was known to everyone, and there wasn't any need to explain. As he looked at everyone moving around busily, Yi and Wu had a sudden thought about the clockwork that Typhon spoke about. Was it just a coincidence that Yi and Wu had immediately thought of the pocket watch that his younger brother had left behind? Or was there something relevant there? One after the other, black and red lightning bolts fell from the sky near Kronos' corpse. Crash, crash, crash. Open hollow corner bracket how did this? The king of the underworld has appeared. Need to let know. The titans who had followed Helios and still waited for him to come out were thrown into chaos as sword thunder pierced their chests in an unexpected attack. They had no idea that Yi and Wu and his party would show up, expecting them to try to take the temple of the king of the underworld, where there were traces of Hades, or move to Erebus. They also thought he might try to aim for the Gigantes and Persephone. They never considered that Yenwu's party would attack them, and now they were caught short-handed. Those on the outskirts hurriedly tried to open their channel with Thea to inform her of Yenwu's attack. Crack, I'm sorry, but we'd like to move as cautiously and as quietly as possible. They thought they saw something flash, but even before they understood what was happening, their decapitated heads were already rising in the air. Prince Nezha, Erlang Shen, Agaras, and Fenrir had quickly eliminated them. Hercules also appeared, laughing cheerfully as if he were having the time of his life. Athena was a little startled by the sight of the great beings working together. They were all gods with outstanding skills, and each one of them could reach the status of a supreme god. How did Yenwu build such friendly relations with them and bring them over to his side? She felt awed by his abilities. It doesn't seem like he's exuviated yet, but he can still overwhelm the Titans. As if he were making a point that Cisseus' defeat wasn't a fluke, Yenwu used Sword Thunder, its brilliance leaving a lasting impression on Athena. Crackle. The Titans were reduced to dust by Yenwu's strikes. Let's move. Yenwu put the steaming Vigrid down, observing the situation and spreading his sky wings. Athena nodded and followed Yenwu. Although deprived of her divine throne, Athena still possessed a considerable amount of divine power, so she was more agile than most of the lower gods. Yenwu and Athena had landed on Kronos' face. Since many years had passed since he'd lain on the ground, his face was covered in vegetation and looked like a mountain ridge. The endless gorges and caves only gave them a rough idea of Kronos' facial features. Rumble, rumble, the casts on Yenwu's limbs trembled in unison. Athena was slightly startled. They said that Kronos was an apostle of the Black King, so it makes sense they would react like this. Yenwu did not spare too much thought on it. In fact, from the time he first entered Tartarus, the castes of the Black King had reacted strongly the closer he got to Kronos' corpse. Perhaps this was only natural since castes remembered their original owner, and they could see that his former apostle was now in a pitiful state. Of course the castes would resonate with the traces of divine power, and because they were closer than ever, the castes were reacting more strongly than before. I'm going to head in. Is it really all right to enter on your own? We can go together, Athena asked worriedly, but Yenwu shook his head resolutely. It's much easier for me to go in alone. Athena was a bit saddened by Yenwu's terse rejection, but she knew that she would only be in the way if she followed, so she meekly nodded and backed away. However, concern still remained in her eyes as she watched Yenwu. Typhon's words kept ringing in her ears. The divine domain of time would ensnare the existence of anyone who came into contact with Kronos without any preparation and suspend them in a state of pause forever. Typhon also said that he did not know how to rewind Kronos' clockwork and that only Mother Earth and her apostle, Persephone, knew the process. Despite this, Yenwu was still determined to jump into Kronos. Yenwu's plan terrified Athena and his companions, but he dispelled their concerns at once. Kronos had been the apostle of the Black King, but Yenwu himself was a successor of the Black King. As far as Yenwu was concerned, he and Kronos were in equal positions, so he most likely wouldn't be paused. If he encountered any trouble, he could simply call on emptiness and the chains. In the end, no one could convince Yenwu not to go, and they decided to simply secure the area until he came back. At this point, the Titans and Gigantes were probably busy battling each other, but it was still best to be prepared in case something unexpected happened. As I said earlier, if I don't show up by the deadline we set, please pull this chain. You'll be able to understand Kronos' inner structure as well. Yenwu placed the end of the chain in Athena's hand. It would be as complicated as a maze inside Kronos' corpse, and in order to find his way back, Yenwu had decided to follow the example of Theseus using Ariadne's string in the legends. He left the end of the chain with Athena so she could pull him out. It would help him find his way back, and in the worst case, Athena would be able to retrieve his paused body if he was afflicted with a divine disease. If that happened, Athena and the others would still be able to understand the workings of Kronos' corpse by reading the vestiges of his paused self, and it wouldn't be a total loss. All right, but don't overdo it, okay. Yenwu nodded and threw himself into the cave which they believed was Kronos' mouth. Please be safe, Athena quietly prayed as she stared at the darkness that swallowed up Yenwu. It's deep. This was all Yenwu could think about as soon as he entered the darkness. He fell without end until he didn't even know if he was still falling. All his senses were sealed off, and only his consciousness remained. Or rather, it was more accurate to say that his senses had been paused. My consciousness is fairly strong, so it shouldn't succumb too easily, but it's probably just a matter of time before it gets paused as well. The senses of transcendent beings weren't limited to the usual 5 that mortals possessed. They could also sense the law of natural order and understand what was happening with the world. They could tap into the metaphysical realm and sense the flow of time and space, as well as the various causalities that existed within. If a being possessed an awareness that could contemplate the entire universe, what would they feel if they were suddenly thrown into a place that made that impossible? They would probably collapse very quickly. Regardless of one's mental strength, it was difficult to withstand the loss of something that one had enjoyed throughout one's entire life. The transcendents would probably consider a place like this hell. How would a being who possessed an absolute awareness system that overlooked the entire universe feel if suddenly thrown into a place like this, where everything comes to a complete standstill? However, Yin Wu had gone through the 5 mountains of penances, and he'd already experienced extended time through time difference. It wouldn't be too hard for him. It seems like the abyss. He had already grown accustomed to the abyss, which would make any ordinary person go insane. Of course, that did not mean that this was a good place. Just because it wasn't surprising or unfamiliar didn't mean he liked it. He still wanted to recover the senses that had been paused by this place. At first, he'd planned on using the castes of the Black King to do so. Instead of that, I think this may also be possible. Yin Wu was thinking of using the same method as the one he used to find his way through the abyss. Yin Wu focused and controlled his thoughts, sending all his mental energy towards a single point. Once he'd fully captured it with his will, he twisted it to create the image he had in mind and began his illusory change. Yin Wu suddenly felt his paused senses opening up. Whoosh! He could now What is this? Yin Wu's expression grew stiff from shock. The world was not growing brighter. The darkness around him was still absolute. However, there were things moving in the darkness. I thought then, that I would take the throne. Drag that crazy bastard down. Another son was born. A son. Why, look, become like this. A spirit. Letters swam around like fish, combining and separating. Some formed a single line of text like ones found in a diary, and others combined into mysterious sentences. It was a familiar scene for Yin Wu. It looks like the inside of Zheng Wu's pocket watch. However, that world where Zheng Wu's vestige body slept and dreamt the same dream over and over was completely white, while this place was completely black. Why did the inside of Kronos look the same? For a moment, the side of Yin Wu's chest itched. He could tell that he was missing a very large piece of the puzzle, but he had no idea what it was. Frustration choked him. Yin Wu quickly looked around, wondering if he would find any clues among the letters. Rhea was very beautiful, and she was also very hateful. Zeus. What a loathsome name. However, Yin Wu soon realized that all the letters that made sense referred to legends that Kronos had achieved in the past. He had defeated Uranus to sit on the throne of Olympus, only to be usurped in turn by his own children, just as a prophecy had foretold. The letters described moments up to the point when Zeus, Poseidon, and Hades defeated Kronos and imprisoned him in the darkness of Tartarus. If Yin Wu had written down what he'd seen in the murals of Olympus' treasury, the story would be the same. For a brief moment, Yin Wu felt that he had become Kronos as Kronos' complex sorrow overwhelmed him. However, he also felt a strong sense of déjà vu. These legends were from Kronos' point of view, couldn't they also be considered as a type of diary? SS's. Some of the sentences broke apart into syllables, mixing and matching like Lego pieces. They were people, or had been at one point in the past. Those who'd entered Kronos' corpse over the past thousands of years and were paused now began to take shape by using the letters. There were hundreds of them. They said in unison, "Who are you?" Since they couldn't speak, they used the letters to communicate. "Why do you not bow your head in the presence of the king?" "Those who wish to visit the king must kneel and bow their heads to show respect. You will become a part of the king. However, it is strange. Why do you possess a power similar to that of our king? You appear to be a human. How do you possess a power that resembles that of our king and—" The moving sentences abruptly stopped and formed one last question: why do you look like him? The nagging feeling that Yin Wu had now began to spread through his body, tightening around his neck. Those beings reassembled the letters to create a gigantic throne dozens of meters in height. It was ornately decorated and looked like something only a king could sit on. Other letters began to form a human-shaped figure who sat with his arms crossed and his head down, as though he were bored. He wore a red crown and black clothing. Yin Wu could not see his eyes clearly, but the uncomfortable feeling around his neck Yin Wu now started twisting his soul. Yi and Wu began to feel short of breath as the missing puzzle piece gradually began to take shape. His skeptical mind was so stunned that he felt like it was all absurd. But this was real. The being on the throne slowly raised his head to meet Yi and Wu's eyes. Yi and Wu felt as though his world were tinged in red, and he shouted as though he were trying to shake off the weight on his soul. His voice was filled with despair. Father. Yi and Wu didn't know what to make of the sight in front of him. Father. Yi and Wu had believed his father had died after leaving their family when Yi and Wu was still young. Eventually, Yi and Wu forgot about him. Love, hatred, he didn't have any attachments like that. There was no reason for him to be interested in someone he didn't even think about. Yi and Wu had even pretended not to know that Jung Woo had occasionally contacted their father. It wasn't worth getting angry at Jung Woo over it. He didn't want to become involved with their father in any way, so he simply turned away. It was only after Jung Woo disappeared that Yi and Wu began to search for their father, hoping to find clues. He had stopped at nothing to look for his father, but he couldn't find a single trace of him, as if he had disappeared from the face of the earth. This enraged Yi and Wu even more, and he resolved never to think of their father again. But why was their father here? Why did he look so weary? Did that being just happen to have his father's face? That's impossible. Yi and Wu ground his teeth because he knew that there was no such thing as coincidence. The identity of the being who looked like his father angered him the most. The creatures that Kronos had swallowed said that the being was their king, and the being seemed to be in his element as he looked down at his son coldly from his throne. Did that mean the being was Kronos? But that didn't make sense. If Kronos really was their father, how could he have traveled to Earth in his paused state and fathered children? Even if the pause had been temporarily released, how did he manage to avoid Alpharon's eyes to leave the tower? Even progenitor gods and conceptual gods couldn't do, it was impossible Kronos would succeed. It was all too mysterious. The being continued to look at Yi and Wu with red eyes, not reacting at all to Yi and Wu's shout. The letters that formed his body clacked against each other, as though he were an elaborate doll. There were no emotions in his eyes as he seemed to stare through Yi and Wu to a space beyond. Since he's paused, is his consciousness paused as well? Just as Jung Woo dreamt constantly in his slumber, did Kronos endlessly repeat the old legends in his paused consciousness? Even this was a puzzle. Giggle, giggle, Yi and Wu gripped Vigrid, ignoring the demonism's laughter rising from somewhere. Puzzles were meant to be solved. Sixth step dragon body awakening. All powers have been released. Crack, Yi and Wu spread his sky wings wide and awakened all the powers and divine authorities inside him. Black-red waves of heat whooshed around him. As they were struck, the letters and sentences circling him fell to the floor in tiny pieces. You dare sully the space of the king? The king's servants were infuriated. Blasphemy. A blasphemous being. You will pay for your sins with your death. You will become the king's servant. The servants spewed out sentences in a hostile manner. However, this didn't seem to originate from loyalty but from a desire to drag Yi and Wu into the same pathetic situation that they were suffering. Helios, who was at the forefront, seemed to emanate this desire the most. Come with me, hash hash hash. I've been so wronged. Swoosh. Before he died, Helios' domain had been over the sun. When he released his strength, there was a wave of intense heat and blinding light that was so bright that it illuminated even the darkness of Kronos' world. Ding! The scenario quest, qualification test, has been created. Scenario quest qualification test I, searching for clockwork springs. Description: long ago, the king of gods, Kronos, led Olympus into a golden age. He inspired fear and respect in all societies, but when he collapsed from the madness of darkness, his children, Zeus and the other, took over his throne. Death has currently overtaken Kronos in Tartarus, and all of his clockwork has been frozen, rusting and breaking from the long period of time. Even if the clockwork is rewound, it will not work properly. However, it remains in deep sleep, waiting to be awakened. Restore the clockwork so Kronos can awake from death. Depending on your level of accomplishment, Kronos will reward you appropriately for waking him from his slumber. Qualifications: successor of the Black King. Time limit. Conditions for success: 1. Find and collect the scattered springs of Kronos. 2. Uncover the true identity of the springs. Rewards: 1. Kronos, holy power. 2. Pieces of the clockwork. 3. Yi and Wu frowned at the quest window. It was similar to the quest that had appeared after he defeated crawling chaos and rescued the giants. It displeased him. Unlike the other quests given by the system, he felt that the scenario quests were impositions and that he had no other choice but to complete them. However, since they were in line with Yi and Wu's own goals, he ignored the quest. He didn't want any of the information to influence and possibly limit him. Swish, boom, when he brandished Vigrid, bolts of sword thunder sparked down the blade. Open angle bracket sun pulling wagon close angle bracket. The power Helios was about to activate could recreate a version of the sun chariot he rode in the legends. Do. The sun chariot tried to overwhelm Yi and Wu with extreme light and heat, but the bolts of sword thunder twisted at various angles, piercing through the white light towards Helios. Helios swung his left hand to activate another power. Open angle bracket daylight rays close angle bracket. The white holy power in his hand attempted to counteract the sword thunder, but the bolts of sword thunder split apart as they hit the ground. The holy power slashed through empty space, and the bolts of sword thunder trapped Helios as though they were a cage. Boom, boom, explosions blew Helios and the sun chariot away. The sparks from the aftermath flashed into more bolts of sword thunder and spread out. It seemed as though the sword thunder was destroying Kronos' world, scattering the letters and reaching Kronos' throne. However, a protective force suddenly used tiny pieces of letters to create a barrier around Kronos and deflected sword thunder. Swish, Yi and Wu immediately dashed between the bolts towards Kronos. Since he'd already Helios and the rest of Kronos' servants, nothing stood in his way. Boom, Vigrid clashed against the barrier, leaving sparks in its wake. The space around the two endlessly twisted and caved in. Yi and Wu pushed his left hand inside the broken barrier, and with his magic power, he began to pull Kronos towards his hand. It was the technique from the one-horned tribe called void absorption. For the first time, Kronos made a move, his bored expression still fixed on his face. He waved his hand in the air, as if he were shooing away a bothersome fly. Boom, the sound of explosions filled the air, obliterating void absorption. The impact sent Yi and Wu back, his face twisting at the realization that Kronos had the power to push him back. This was more than Typhon could manage, and there was a chance that Kronos was on a higher level than the crawling chaos. Since he was a skilled successor of the Black King whose status was beyond those of many godly and demonic societies, it made sense. Yi and Wu grew angrier since he didn't know what Kronos was thinking. Kronos was supposed to be in a paused state at the moment, so what was going on? Questions flooded his mind, one after the other. Was the man with that damned face his father? If so, why was he as silent as a doll? How was this related to Jung-woo? However, Yi and Wu had to put these questions aside when Kronos folded space and appeared right in front of him, his expression as weary as ever. Boom, Vigrid's blade collided with Kronos' hand, sending shockwaves vibrating throughout the world. The broken letters disintegrated into dirt, and Yi and Wu grew certain of one thing: nothing would change no matter how many questions he asked. The being was Kronos and wasn't Kronos at the same time. Although the being moved with the legends of Kronos, he was only an empty shell without any emotions, thoughts, or even a proper ego. Devour. The power, Hades, spirit-eating sword, is attempting to swallow Kronos. Yi and Wu gripped Kronos' neck and activated Hades, spirit-eating sword with the intent to completely swallow Kronos. He wouldn't be able to contain his anger otherwise. Crash. The world shook turbulently as Kronos was taken apart letter by letter and sucked into Hades, spirit-eating sword. Although he was losing power, Kronos only struggled to push Yi and Wu away. He didn't seem to be trying to shake Hades, spirit-eating sword off. You have discovered a spring. A message popped up in the corner of his eye and Yi and Wu felt something click inside of him. Kronos, image grew blurred as another message appeared. The first test to restore the clockwork is beginning. Test. Yi and Wu's world turned black. The letters that Hades, spirit-eating sword had consumed in the long-forgotten legends combined with the achievements that Yi and Wu had accumulated. His body began to fade. Spark. Yi and Wu's body slowly fell apart and trembled dangerously, as though it were on the verge of breaking. Your Highness, my prince. You must wake up. Yi and Wu frowned when a hand suddenly shook him. He had a splitting headache. Prince, where was this? He was sure that he had just been fighting with Kronos. He forced his eyes open, not sure what was going on. Opposite him was a middle-aged woman wearing a strange outfit. It looked like she had draped a large piece of cloth hanging from one shoulder over her body. She was looking at him with a concerned expression on her wrinkled face. Just when Yi and Wu was about to ask who she was. Currently, player ###'s achievements and Kronos legends have been mixed together. Your achievements and legends are being separated to prevent identity confusion. Player ###'s achievements are being regenerated. Regeneration has succeeded. Kronos legends are being regenerated. Regeneration has failed. Regeneration has failed. Player S ego has been re-established, but Kronos' ego could not be recreated. An error has occurred, interfering in the process in order to complete the separation. Kronos legends are being regenerated by player A part of Kronos memories is being passed down for the legends to progress smoothly. Suddenly, Yian Wu was hit with a new headache. It was different from the one before because a flood of information was entering his mind. Yian Wu learned that he had entered Kronos' dreams of his youth. It was a time before Kronos had taken the throne and before Olympus had been trapped inside the tower. It was the era of the Heavenly Father, Uranus, just after the creation of the universe. Uranus is urgently searching for your highness. You must hurry. You must not make him angry again. Ding. The scenario quest qualification test searching for clockwork springs has been updated. Scenario quest qualification test searching for clockwork springs. Description. Clockwork springs are hiding in the legends of Kronos, the god of time and agriculture. Search for the springs and play back the legends. Yian Wu's expression stiffened. To find the springs, he would have to dig through the past of the being that might be his father. The hallway leading to the place where Uranus waited was quite long. Is this what Olympus looks like? The marble columns were intricate and elegant, but Yian Wu didn't care too much about them. For a while now, something beyond the hallway had been making his skin tingle. He knew who was responsible. Uranus, the first supreme god who established Olympus and ruled the heavens before Kronos had pulled him down from the throne, according to the legends. Is he more powerful than the crawling chaos? It's said he even fought Mother Earth. Yian Wu only now understood the strength of progenitor and conceptual gods. Unlike other progenitor gods who had incomplete egos and couldn't maintain their existences, the fact that Uranus had a strong hold on his existence meant that he could express his thoughts. Yian Wu was curious about his appearance, but there was also another, more compelling reason he wanted to see Uranus. There must be something significant about this moment since it's the one I've awakened in. It's possible that Uranus is at the core of the matter. Yian Wu still didn't know what the springs were, but he was certain it was something important to Kronos' existence. His eyes darkened. He had already settled his mind. He still didn't know if Kronos was his father, and if that were the case, he had many questions to ask. However, at the moment, he ignored this issue to focus on figuring out what the springs were and taking them for himself. Then, the power that had once dominated the societies of the heavenly world would be his. In addition, he'd be able to gain the power of the Black King that Kronos had possessed. I don't care what kind of backstory Kronos has, but I might as well take his strength while I'm already here. Yian Wu focused on his main goal. To do that, I need to know what kind of being Uranus is. As he organized his thoughts, he soon reached a gigantic, marble door that was so huge that he had to crane his neck to look at its entire length. The murals on the wall seemed to be depicting Uranus's legends, his heavenly rule over the ignorant mortals and their worship of him. Did he like glorifying himself that much? It was true being worshipped and venerated was important for divine beings, but Yian Wu couldn't help smirking at how petty it seemed. He stretched his hand to the door. Thump, creak. Before he could even touch it, the marble door opened on its own, revealing a blue sky instead of a room. Countless stars shone in the dark blue sky. There were constellations Yian Wu had never seen before. It was truly beautiful. Below was a middle-aged man with a white beard who seemed to be indifferent to the beauty of the constellations as he moved his hands unsympathetically. Some stars detached from the constellations and turned into nebulae while others turned into large and magnificent planets. As Yian Wu watched, his body shuddered instinctively. He realized that the middle-aged man's casual gestures were responsible for the beginnings of a universe. Yian Wu had only ever broken things and had never really thought of creating anything. He was dumbfounded by the majesty and beauty of it. It was too magnificent. However, he also felt a little out of place, perhaps because creation was too different from the darkness that he'd grown accustomed to. Creation meant order, which was anathema to darkness. What's taken you so long to get here? The middle-aged man, Uranus, didn't even turn away from what he was doing. Yian Wu contemplated for a while. What should I say? This was the world of Kronos legends, which meant this was a world created by Kronos unconscious. Yian Wu wondered what would happen if he behaved in a way that was unlike Kronos. If he did something different, would the outcome change and lead to a path that hadn't existed in the past? Would this fake world simply collapse or would it lead to another story? If this world were destroyed, would the springs disappear as well? What would happen to him? Would he disappear? Or would the legend simply restart? If it resulted in another story, would it help him find the springs? Was Kronos expecting him to tie up loose ends or find another solution? What did the springs have to do with this? There were too many things to think about since the possibilities were infinite. Since I don't know anything, I should act in a way that doesn't affect the story too much. But that brought up another problem. Yi and Wu didn't know much about this era. The events around Uranus were already ancient history even for someone like Zeus. And since it was an embarrassing part of history that no one wanted to highlight, the stories about it were often inaccurate. Yi and Wu couldn't rely on them. Although he'd received part of Kronos' memories, they were so incomplete that he was probably better off without them. He only remembered people's names or things like how to get around Olympus. I don't even know what Kronos' personality was like. Yi and Wu's eyes narrowed. Although he knew he needed to act like Uranus was his father, he didn't even know how Kronos usually behaved around Uranus. He needed to have at least a few memories about their relationship to pull the act off. Why aren't you saying anything? The amount of time that Yi and Wu used to think clearly bothered Uranus because he turned around with a frown. The holy power filling the temple tightened around Yi and Wu's neck. Gods were sensitive to hierarchy, and it was common for them to release their strength to display their power and demonstrate the differences in abilities. Uranus was only trying to intimidate Kronos by releasing his strength. He probably thought he was showing off his authority, but Yi and Wu found it an annoyance. He grew defiant. His desire to defeat an opponent usually grew the more an opponent tried to show off their strength. Although this was usually hidden behind his cold personality, it sometimes seeped through. Since you're the one that summoned me, shouldn't you be the one to speak first, father? It was awkward calling Uranus father, but Yi and Wu shrugged off those feelings and waved his hand to disperse Kronos' holy power. Yi and Wu didn't miss the light that flashed in Uranus's eyes. However, as if that expression had never appeared, Uranus quickly put on a furious expression and shouted, "You scoundrel! You never back down, do you?" I guess my answer sounded authentic. Yi and Wu felt relieved, knowing that he had made the right choice. Uranus's holy power no longer tightened around him. He knew how to behave around Uranus now, and in fact, it wouldn't need a lot of acting. Of course, there was a chance that Uranus might be able to tell something was amiss if Yi and Wu suddenly grew talkative, so Yi and Wu stayed taciturn. Yi and Wu stared at Uranus, who misinterpreted him again. Uranus frowned in displeasure and shouted, "No matter how drunk you were, how can you beat up your siblings? They shared the same embryo as you, and yet you treated them so harshly. Are you aware of how furious the elders are? They say they want to discipline you." Oh, was Kronos just a scumbag? Yi and Wu realized that he needed to be more of a degenerate. How could Kronos hit his own siblings? From Uranus's anger, it seemed like Kronos was a real dirtbag. But wasn't Kronos the youngest of Uranus's children? Yi and Wu wanted to see how pathetic Uranus's siblings were to be beaten up by the youngest. Uranus's shouting grew louder. "You know better than anyone the situation we're in. Gaia, that brazen Mother Earth who birthed you, is sending monstrous creatures to take over our positions. And that isn't the end of it. Those suspicious demons are trying to play all sides to defeat us, and the dirty dragons are just looking on even though we gave them so many things." Uranus clenched his fists. The constellations he'd created all dropped powerlessly to the ground. Now that the heavenly demon is done using us, he's acting like a rabid dog. He's threatening to lock us up. We only have each other to trust and rely on, but how can you just create more enmity and even get your siblings to turn their backs on you? Yi and Wu thought it better to stay quiet as he pieced together what had happened from the information that Uranus had revealed. The gods of Olympus had freely roamed the universes and dimensions during Uranus's era. They hadn't been bound to the heavenly world, but it had also been an age of conflict and uncertainty. It seemed that this had reached a boiling point. Did the heavenly demon act during this time? Olympus was already trapped in the heavenly world during Zeus' era, so it seemed the heavenly demon had been around before then. Uranus shouted more loudly, thinking Yi and Wu was being defiant. "Ha!" Uranus sighed. Wrinkles filled his face as if their conversation suddenly aged him. "Son," his words had no more strength. "As you already know, I don't have much time left. I'm already overwhelmed by living like this. Please, don't argue needlessly among yourselves. My only wish is that you all get through this situation together." Yi and Wu continued to stay silent, and Uranus looked at him in concern. "You don't have anything to say?" "No, father." "Fine, I suppose it won't matter what I say to you now." Uranus didn't pursue the matter any longer, thinking that his words were falling on deaf ears. Instead, he switched to a different topic, his face weary. What about the Swamp of Darkness? What's your progress on that? Swamp of Darkness. Yin-Wu had never heard of it before, but he could tell it was an important key to solving this quest, especially since it referred to darkness. It was definitely something he couldn't ignore. You know what kind of place it is, don't you, father? Yin-Wu kept his answer ambiguous in order to tease more information about the Swamp of Darkness. However, Uranus simply assumed that his degenerate youngest child hadn't performed the task he was responsible for. You damned bastard, are you saying you didn't do anything because you were too busy drinking with your subordinates? Enraged, Uranus threw some nearby furniture at Yin-Wu. Crack, Yin-Wu left Uranus's temple with a surly expression, two black eyes decorating his face. I can't believe this happened to me as soon as the quest started. Why did he have to be punished for something that someone else did? His first mistake was dodging the furniture Uranus had thrown at him. Since Kronos' body was about the same as his own, and was even more comfortable in some ways, he managed to dodge the furniture with ease. However, it only infuriated Uranus even more, and Uranus said that he would see the end of his youngest son that day. It hadn't been easy for Yin-Wu to defend himself since Uranus was not an easy foe. It had taken Yin-Wu a while to escape him. That dirty-tempered geezer. Yin-Wu clucked his tongue thinking of the way Uranus had shot holy power out like lightning. I can see why the godly societies place Olympus in a different category from themselves. Anyone with that personality is bound to be surrounded by enemies. Uranus, Olympus' first supreme god, had a horrible temper, and based on Uranus's words, the next ruler, Kronos, was a good-for-nothing. Yin-Wu began to worry about the quest. Who knew how long he would have to deal with the consequences of Uranus and Kronos battles? However, although he didn't like it, it was strangely less annoying than it ought to be. He could see that Uranus's anger at Kronos had stemmed from a fatherly love and regret. Yin-Wu had never experienced that before. Uranus was just like Yin-Wu's warm and loving mother. I must be exhausted if I'm thinking useless thoughts like these. Yin-Wu shook off his melancholy thoughts and told himself to get a grip. Fortunately, his meeting with Uranus had produced some useful information. You have gained a clue about the swamp from Uranus. It is likely the clockwork springs are in this location. You are advised to explore and examine this site. Looks like the system messages will tell me which direction to take. Yin-Wu realized then how he would have to progress with the quest. First, I'll keep myself to actions that don't affect Kronos' legends too much. I think I've figured out Kronos' personality, so I'll just react accordingly to any events that might come up during this quest. His priority was to find the Swamp of Darkness. But I have an idea where it might be. It's probably something like a hidden card or secret weapon Olympus has to deal with the current danger they're facing. Olympus likely desired more strength for the battle with Mother Earth, not to mention their other troubles, such as dealing with the heavenly demon. They had probably created the Swamp of Darkness to help them gain more power. If Uranus asked Kronos about it, that means he's expecting something from Kronos. Yin-Wu wondered what it might be and quickly arrived at an answer. Apostle of the Black King. Yin-Wu's eyes darkened. It's hard to say whether this was Uranus's intention all along or it was a coincidence that Kronos was chosen, but this is probably around the time that Kronos became the Black King's apostle. However, there was something that Yin-Wu didn't understand. Uranus had said he didn't have much time left. What did that mean? Yin-Wu was still thinking this over when he abruptly halted, feeling someone glaring at him from behind a column. Pause. There's nothing more pathetic than spying on someone, is there? Yin-Wu tried to imitate Kronos' personality, his lips twisting in a smile. He found it strangely easy to act the part. Even he could sense how irritating his smirk looked, and he was sure it was enough to get on the other person's nerves. You damned bastard. The person spying on him walked out with gritted teeth. Although he had immense holy power, he was even more injured than Yin-Wu was. Yin-Wu recognized him right away. Iapetos. Yin-Wu had fought him when he first arrived in Tartarus. So that's the pathetic guy that Kronos beat up. Yin-Wu scoffed to himself. People said one's true colors always showed. It turned out that Iapetos had always been a pathetic loser. Anyone else would hide in embarrassment from being beaten up by their youngest sibling, but Iapetos was truly an idiot. Iapetos saw Yin-Wu's judgmental expression. You. Clenching his fists, Iapetos glared at Yin-Wu, but he didn't try to attack. His confidence had drastically dropped after his beating. This only confirmed Yi and Wu's poor impression of Iapetos, and he decided that it would be a waste of time to deal with him any longer. If you don't have anything to say, I'll be off. Yi and Wu smirked again as he passed Iapetos. Iapetos glared at Yi and Wu until Yi and Wu was gone. Then, he kicked a column. Oh my, oh my. Oh, dear, are you all right, master? What should we do? It must hurt a lot. Lord Uranus shouldn't have gone this far. Yi and Wu felt awkward at the dismay of his nanny, Anank. Her concern was genuine, as if she were fussing over her son or brother. It was a warm emotion he hadn't felt from anyone after his mother passed away. It was surprising that Kronos had been so loved. If that's the case, how did he end up turning into such a jerk? That's a talent, too. Yi and Wu clucked his tongue. On the way from Uranus's temple to Kronos' residence, he had seen the gazes of the divine beings. Many quickly looked down to avoid his eyes or took a detour away from him. When he asked a female servant something, she collapsed because her legs shook too much to support her. Yi and Wu realized that Kronos was even worse than he'd imagined. What had Kronos done for everyone to behave like this around him? Thanks to this, Yi and Wu was having a hard time talking to others. I'm all right, don't make a fuss. But, master, there's something I want to ask. Anank glared at Yi and Wu disapprovingly when he refused to be treated. She asked, sulking, what trouble are you in now? It's not what you're thinking, so don't worry. Before that, back when I beat up Iapetos. Oh, are you talking about Atlas? Atlas had taken Kronos' side even after Zeus' rebellion. He was the titan whose punishment was to carry the world eternally on his back. Why was she saying his name now? Since you were quite drunk at the time, I suppose you didn't hear. That's the name of the warrior you rescued. He was quite timid for his size. Iapetos was harassing him for being dull-witted, and you rescued him when you passed by. Anank cocked her head. I barely managed to send him away because he kept saying he wanted to repay you. I suppose you've only just remembered it now. What should I do? Should I summon him? No, it's fine. Atlas was different from the Atlas Yi and Wu knew about. He waved his hand, thinking the quest would probably get longer if he involved himself with Atlas too much. At the same time, he thought that Kronos wasn't as bad as he'd believed. A few days later, Uranus gave orders to launch an exploration of the Swamp of Darkness. In the meantime, Yi and Wu looked into Kronos' reputation and gathered information about this time period. He learned enough about Kronos and grew more comfortable with the quest. He was ready to really get started. Me, Atlas, protect, Lord Kronos. Definitely. A guy so massive that he could be one of the giant race approached with booming steps. He pleaded desperately to repay you or at least be your servant. I had no choice but to let him join. He says he has the blood of giants in his lineage, so he will be of help to you somehow. Anank carefully peered at Yi and Wu while speaking. She was nervous because she didn't know what his reaction would be. However, Yi and Wu just glanced at Atlas without saying much and headed into the forest where the expedition party waited. Some of the members had already arrived. How timely of our youngest to arrive now. There were 10 people, each one with a fierce holy power and sharp gaze. Iapetos was among them. The children of Uranus. They all wanted to inherit Uranus's throne. They would later be called the 12 great gods of Kronos' age and be the ancestors of the Titan race. Yi and Wu had learned that Uranus's children weren't his biological children. They're successors of various societies that Uranus gathered to establish Olympus. In other words, they were adopted in order to help unite Olympus. This was why even though they were siblings, they didn't have any brotherly or sisterly love since they were rivals who were fighting over the throne. 4 stood out in particular. Oceanus, the oldest, smiled gently at the back of the party. Theia, the imperious second daughter, had the same domain as Uranus did, the heavens. Kronos, the youngest, but the one who has the most holy power. This was the body that Yi and Wu currently possessed. And the last one. Is she not here yet? Yi and Wu looked at the empty seat. He had seen the other titans in Tartarus, but this last being was someone he'd never seen before. And there's something I want to confirm too. Yi and Wu grew contemplative, but Iapetos spoke up in a scornful voice meant for him to hear. The younger ones are the worst. They're acting like this even though they know it's father's orders. However, the other siblings also seemed to think of Iapetos as a moron because they didn't even pretend to pay attention to him. Only Oceanus soothed him. He must be quite busy. It isn't too urgent yet, so there's no need to rush. The more you rush, the more you may mess things up. Since he couldn't talk back to the oldest sibling, Iapetos just pressed his lips together with a displeased look and remained silent. Oceanus looked at Yi and Wu with a smile still on his face. Kronos, do you know where that child went? How am I supposed to know? Yi and Wu shrugged, and Oceanus's eyes narrowed with a laugh. Nothing can be done then, I suppose. Let's just wait here for now. At that moment, Yi and Wu sensed someone running over to them. She's here. Yi and Wu turned toward the being who had even more holy power than the other siblings. Sorry, I'm late. As soon as she appeared through the grass panting with an apologetic expression, Yi and Wu closed his eyes tightly. He'd been dreading this as soon as he realized that Kronos looked like his father. It was Rhea, the youngest daughter of Uranus, the biological mother of Zeus, Poseidon, and Hades, and the main reason behind Kronos' fall. Her face was achingly familiar. Mother. It was the face he missed the most. More beautiful and youthful than he remembered, his dead mother stood in front of him. The children of Uranus hacked through the grass in the swamp of darkness. Although they were great divine beings, they sensed a great threat. Perhaps it was because they were outside of Olympus or the energy of the planet itself, but no matter how much they tried to activate their holy power, it just sparked and died away. They found it difficult to move. The closer they were to the swamp, the heavier the sensation grew, and they almost felt as though they would disappear forever if they let their guard down. Even those who had entered confidently grew anxious. They hadn't felt this even when they battled the other societies. It was a nervousness they only felt when facing Mother Earth. Fortunately, the soldiers they brought were the ones opening the path to the swamp, which protected them a little. Yi and Wu was at the very back, and he was silent for a different reason than the others. His eyes were fixed on Rhea, who walked in front of him. Mother. Yi and Wu swallowed the word that was about to escape his throat. He could barely stop himself from embracing his mother and telling her he missed her. She was that important to him, and to Jungwoo, too. Unlike their father, who disappeared when they were young, their mother had always lovingly watched over them. Even during Yi and Wu's rebellious phase when he didn't focus on his studies, she never scolded him at all and was patient with him. She only reprimanded him and Jungwoo whenever they fought, but in the end, she always hugged them. Even though they didn't have a lot of money, she stopped at nothing and worked day and night to ensure they were educated, and she'd even grown sick from overwork. Yi and Wu and Jungwoo had blamed themselves for their mother's health, but their mother denied it was from overwork and reassured them. Jungwoo discovered there was a way to cure their mother and began to climb the tower, and their mother passed away while waiting for him to return. Yi and Wu was left with his anger bubbling inside him until he grew numb. So, this is what she looked like when she was young. He never imagined he'd see his mother in her younger days here. Because Kronos looked like his father, Yi and Wu braced himself for the possibility that Rhea might be his mother, but it was still tough to deal with. I have no idea at all what's going on. Yi and Wu tried to contain his longing for his mother while attempting to make sense of the situation. From the legends that he knew, Rhea despised Kronos. Not only did Kronos lock the Cyclops and Hecatoncheires, who were like family, in Tartarus, but he was also a tyrant who swallowed all of his children. This was why Rhea had been one of the instigators of Kronos' fall. She secretly hid their youngest child, Zeus, and awakened the Cyclops and Hecatoncheires to help her overthrow Kronos. Although Kronos and Rhea were married, they were enemies. However, Yi and Wu remembered his mother saying until the end that he shouldn't resent his father. Her mother's love for his father had been genuine. That wasn't the only thing he didn't understand. Aside from the mystery of his mother's escape from the tower, if he and Jungwoo were truly the children of Kronos and Rhea, that meant they were Zeus' siblings. Why didn't they have any holy power? And if their mother was a great divine being, why couldn't she overcome her sickness? Why did she weaken so much and die? He suspected that his mother's sickness, which couldn't be cured by modern medicine, was actually the heavenly demon disease. Yi and Wu had difficulty keeping his calm. Even though the level of his soul was greater and he had the cold-blooded trait, he struggled to keep his composure. "Ha, you're funny," he suddenly heard an unfamiliar voice from behind. Yi and Wu turned and frowned to see Thea. She was the mother of Helios, Selene, and Eos, and in his time, she had stabbed Typhon in the back to become the Titan's new leader. However, Thea only looked mischievous now. But it's hard to say if it's just an act. Yi and Wu spoke up. "What is it? What do you mean, what? You keep denying it. Ah, you guys fight at the drop of a hat, but I've always known." Yi and Wu's forehead wrinkled as he wondered what kind of nonsense she was talking about. When he finally understood, he scoffed. Thea misunderstood the reason he was staring at Rhea. However, talking with Thea helped him understand what kind of being his mother had been when she was younger. Do we fight that much? Oh my, what are you saying? You don't just fight, you're always growling at each other like enemies. You guys said you would reconcile over your dead bodies, but now you guys have grown fonder of each other, Or were you trying to get on Ray's nerves to grab her attention? When Yian-Woo didn't respond, Thea babbled in Yian-Woo's ear as she whirled around him. She's so loud. It was annoying, but at the same time, he was happy to learn more about his mother. It seemed like this quest wasn't all that bad, after all. Say something, kid, are you mute? When did the chatterbox suddenly get so quiet? So frustrating. Ray's looking this way. Is she jealous because I'm here with you? Did my strategy work? You're pretty good at this. And here I was, thinking you're just a bad-tempered oaf. You've got a sly side to you, He felt like he would go deaf from listening to Thea. However, just as he was about to say something, Oceanus, who was leading them, suddenly raised his hand. Open hollow corner bracket stop. He used his true voice, which boomed with holy power. Yian-Woo and Thea turned. The grass that seemed like it would go on forever had disappeared, and they could see an ocean-like swamp ahead of them. Their faces stiffened at the intense energy they sensed. Thea realized that things had grown serious, and she returned to her forces and prepared for what was ahead. Yian-Woo looked at the swamp of darkness with a grim expression. This place was familiar to him, even though it wasn't for the others. Ding, you have discovered the swamp. Begin your investigation of the swamp. Is this the abyss? No, the demonic sea. The swamp of darkness had various energies, and Yian-Woo shook his head. No, that's not it. It's a more primordial place than either of those. Yian-Woo guessed the abyss and the demonic sea had originated from this swamp because of their similar nature. This was something else, emptiness. Yian-Woo was certain this was the true emptiness that existed before the beginning of time. Since he was the successor of the Black King, Yian-Woo was familiar with it, but the gods of Uranus's era didn't know darkness, and they couldn't muster up the courage to get closer to it. They said this was present even before the beginning of time. Is this the reason why the elders call it the Great Chasm and Chaos? As the group murmured uncertainly, even Oceanus, who was nearly at Uranus's level, looked at the swamp of darkness with a fearful expression. Then, with a look of determination, he gritted his teeth and began to walk forward. His soldiers tried to persuade him not to do it, but he didn't listen to them. Oceanus was the commander of the party and the oldest of the siblings. He thought he needed to lead by example. Yian-Woo tried to follow since examining the swamp of darkness was a part of the quest. He thought he might be able to obtain clues regarding the springs. Master. At that moment, Anank stepped in front of Yian-Woo. What is it? Yian-Woo was about to tell her to move aside, thinking she was trying to stop him from doing something dangerous. But that wasn't the reason why she blocked him. Was Lady Thea speaking the truth? What? Please tell me. Her voice was firm. Yian-Woo's face hardened since he hadn't seen this side of her before. She seemed unhappy about Thea trying to play matchmaker between Kronos and Rhea. It is impossible for the two of you to be together. More than anyone else, you know your family and Lady Ray's family cannot mix or even work together. Since your ancestors, it has already been. Was there a secret about Kronos and Rhea that the legends didn't reveal? Yian-Woo wanted to ask what it was, but this wasn't the right time. Let me take care of my business. Master, move aside. I need to examine the swamp. Anank bit her lip at Yian-Woo's determined attitude and nodded vigorously. Yian-Woo moved past Anank and the rest of the party. Thea and the other gods were surprised to see Yian-Woo so unaffected by the aura of the swamp, but he ignored them and reached the swamp. Oceanus, who was already there, turned back to Yian-Woo in surprise. Kronos, you. Yian-Woo ignored Kronos and looked down at the bubbling swamp. Steam rose over the popping bubbles, creating a sinister atmosphere. The surface of the swamp was as shiny as a polished glass bead, reflecting Yian-Woo's face, or rather, the face of his father, Kronos. It grows more fearsome the more I look at it. How can father think we can gain strength from here? This is neither order nor chaos, and it's too difficult for us to handle since we are seekers of creation. I don't understand him. Kronos, do you know something? Oceanus didn't hide his skepticism of the swamp of darkness. Showing this side to a rival would only make him vulnerable, so did that mean that Oceanus didn't see Kronos as a rival? Or was he just that righteous? Whatever it was, Yian-Woo didn't think it had any relation to him, so he stayed silent and extended his hand to the swamp. Kronos, it's dangerous. Oceanus was aware of his youngest sibling's temperament, and he didn't scold him. However, he didn't want Yi and Wu to be endangered. Then, his eyes widened when he saw what happened next. As soon as Yi and Wu's hand and his reflection's hand met, the surface of the swamp rippled. Yi and Wu's reflection smiled, or rather, it smirked at Yi and Wu. The reflection began to speak. You've come a long way back to this place. How foolish of you to return. Letters spun around the reflection to create a sentence. Come a long way. What did that mean? Suddenly, something flashed through Yi and Wu's head. You again. Yes, your fate is twisted, and your life is still short. Nothing has changed at all. Your fate is to fail over and over, and you will continue failing in the future. Is this your 4th time here? The time, yes. You're closer than before, but that's all. Nothing has changed. I suppose the fate engraved into your soul won't change. Child, you're dreaming of nightmares over and over, trapped inside a cycle. I hope you can escape the nightmares and understand your path someday. Yi and Wu didn't know why the words Alphorone had told Jung Woo in his pocket watch dreams suddenly floated to his mind. He had the strange feeling that the reflection wasn't looking at Kronos but at himself. Let me ask you this. The letters spun and spun to write out another sentence. Which version of me are you? Yi and Wu's eyes widened. Which version? What did that mean? He didn't know if the reflection was Kronos or himself, but he was sure that it was speaking to him. Before he could speak, the reflection smirked. Well, I suppose it doesn't matter. As soon as the words appeared, the reflection faded and muck of the swamp began to climb up Yi and Wu's hand towards his shoulder. Whoosh, hup. The muck sank through his skin and tried to enter his veins. Yi and Wu instinctively tried to pull his arm back, but the swamp tightened around him. Kronos. Oceanus frantically stretched out his hand. Using his holy power, he froze the steam in the air to create a blade of ice and cut off the muck attached to Yi and Wu. However, his skin and veins had already absorbed it. Are you all right, Oceanus? Voice was full of desperation as he caught the falling Yi and Wu, but Yi and Wu couldn't answer him. Thump, thump. Yi and Wu's heart pounded like crazy. His veins pulsed like they were going to explode, and his blood circulated so fast that his breathing grew rapid. It felt as if something were tightening around his body, as though he were a towel being wrung dry. He found it difficult to regain his composure when it felt as though his soul were being shredded. Thump, thump. Which version of me are you? How many times have I spun through the cycle? Well, no matter. I can just do it again until it works. Countless letters whirled in his head. They combined and fell apart, creating multiple sentences. The reflection seemed to be laughing at him, and Yi and Wu could feel his consciousness expanding infinitely. The cells and factors in his body tore apart and merged over and over. Divine factors broke into pieces and reformed with even greater strength. Holy power swelled up inside him like a balloon and the level of his soul was refined. A horrific divine fever tormented his mind and body. Even as he panted, Yi and Wu managed to recognize the sensation. Demonism. It was like the feeling he experienced whenever he held Vigrid to combine with the demonism. However, it was more painful now, most likely due to the fact that the power of darkness was being forced on him. So, this guy is the Black King's. He couldn't think lucidly anymore as the fever grew worse. This won't do. Oceanus decided that Yi and Wu was in danger and tried to carry him away on his back. Despite his terrible state, Yi and Wu was surprised to see that Oceanus was genuinely trying to help instead of taking the opportunity to eliminate a rival. However, Oceanus' attempt was futile. The fever made Yi and Wu's body so hot that it was impossible to touch him, and another strange phenomenon occurred. Large bubbles formed on the surface of the swamp, and peculiar monsters began to appear. Fish, amphibians. They were grotesque and covered entirely in scales. Even the gods of Olympus, who had traveled throughout the universe, found it hard to identify what they were. Keeg. The bizarre creatures each held different weapons. As soon as they met Oceanus' eyes, they dashed towards him. There were easily 100 of them. Good gracious, where had these creatures come from? Oceanus didn't have time to think as he swiftly created a wall of ice to block the monsters from approaching. Thud, thud. However, each of the monsters had the strength of a divine being, and after ramming the wall of ice a few times, the wall looked like it was on the verge of cracking. Brother, are you all right, brother? What is that? The rest of the party rushed over to protect Yi and Wu and Oceanus, activating their powers. There were bursts of light as an intense heat rose and wind lashed around. The party was clearly afraid. The monsters weren't only unnerving, there was another strength emanating from somewhere beyond the swamp that made their hair stand on end. They had fought all sorts of enemies, including Mother Earth, but it was their first time to face such a being, something stronger than Uranus, who dominated everything. Soon, the ice wall broke, and the unexpected battle between the strange monsters and the siblings of Olympus began. What is the meaning of this? Kronos is hurt. After the standoff at the swamp, the gods of Olympus quickly retreated at Oceanus' orders. Fortunately, the farther they were from the swamp, the weaker the strange monsters grew. In the end, it was easy to defeat them. The news of Yin Wu's injury made Uranus hastily appear through a portal. Father, what about Mother Earth? Oceanus was directing the battle, and he was surprised to see Uranus appear. Uranus and the supreme gods of other societies had been working on putting Mother Earth to sleep, and Oceanus didn't understand why Uranus would show up. However, his voice trailed off when he saw that Uranus's left arm was missing. Your arm? That is not important right now. This can easily be healed with holy power. What about our youngest? How is Kronos? Your injury isn't an insignificant matter either. Oceanus swallowed the words at the tip of his tongue. For a supreme divine being like Uranus, it wasn't that simple to restore an arm with holy power. It would be a huge problem if one's divinity were damaged. However, Uranus didn't seem to care, he was only worried about Kronos. Oceanus knew Uranus was devoted to his youngest child, but he thought it was a bit extreme. He sighed, but there was nothing he could do. A parent's love for their child was unstoppable. He led Uranus to Kronos, but he wasn't able to hide his downcast expression. Don't you think father is too fond of the youngest? Oceanus tried to hide his feelings, but Iapetos suddenly sidled up to him. Oceanus, face stiffened. What are you saying? I'm saying father's love for Kronos is too extreme. Be careful of what you say. I mean, aren't you angry, too? You're going to lose your spot to that douchebag. You know father doesn't have too much time left. Oceanus, face twisted. Iapetos realized he had gone too far and shut his mouth, but it was too late. Father is insightful, he must have his plans. Refrain from unnecessary comments. Oceanus firmly reprimanded Iapetos and turned away. He trusted Uranus and was wholly loyal to him. Iapetos's eyes narrowed as Oceanus walked away. He grumbled to Thea, who appeared next to him, looks like we'll have to do it on our own. I told you, big brother is too indecisive. He has the makings of a king, but only in times of peace. He isn't fit for an age of uncertainty like now. Thea's eyes darkened. We must take the throne of Olympus for ourselves. How tenacious. Yes, that's a good quality to have. Although a long time had passed since Yin Wu left the swamp, his body and soul were in agony from the blazing fever, and the whispers of the demonism left him confused. The demonism was waiting for an opportunity to take over Yin Wu's body. But even in this situation, Yin Wu was becoming stronger. What in the world are the springs? How important could they be if they're this hard to find? Yin Wu struggled from the pain. The strange monsters of the swamp of darkness were clear in his mind. They looked just like the ones in the demonic sea, and he was certain they were otherworld gods or beings of that level. However, Yin Wu set those thoughts aside to focus on getting rid of the divine fever endangering his soul. Otherwise, he'd be destroyed before he could progress with the quest. I didn't think something like this would happen. I sent you because you have the gift. I thought you might be able to receive his blessing. But this is a curse, not a blessing. I put you in danger for my own ends. I'm truly sorry. Please forgive me. Yin Wu thought he could hear Uranus's voice through the fog of his consciousness. Fortunately, I still have some strength left, so even if it's not enough to rid you of the curse, it'll keep it at bay. Whoosh. Uranus's tenderly stroked Yin Wu's head. Yin Wu absorbed something and the intense pain and fever died away. Yin Wu fell into a deep sleep. When Yin Wu woke up, he felt a weight on his lap and discovered an old man bent over it, asleep. It took him some time to realize that the old man was Uranus. It was only then that Yin Wu realized what had happened the night before. Did he give me all his holy power? Two opposing energies were swirling inside his body. One was calm and warm. It circulated inside him, caressing his body and soul and supporting his new strength. The other energy was ferocious and thrashed about destructively. It was hot and cold at the same time, and it was similar to darkness. If not for the calm energy, the ferocious one would have already torn his body to pieces. He felt as if his power had been amplified several times because of it. It was obvious what Uranus had sacrificed for his youngest child. Although Yin Wu wasn't really Kronos, he felt moved. It was an unfamiliar emotion. He didn't know what to do. He didn't even know if the emotions belonged to him or to Kronos. When he looked at the wrinkles and age spots on Uranus's face, he felt as if someone had knocked the wind out of him. Just then, Uranus opened his eyes, and Yian-Wu could see Kronos' worried face reflected in them. Uranus chuckled. He found his youngest son's expression endearing. It was such a huge contrast to the time when Uranus had beaten Yian-Wu up. Uranus said in a raspy voice, "You look fine, considering you went around doing scumbag things." Even though Uranus wasn't feeling too good himself, he had put his child's health first. Yian-Wu realized this was what fatherly love was. It was a protective love for one's children. The synchronization percentage has vastly increased. 0% right pointing arrow 3%. You have successfully found a very small spring out of the lost springs. Click, click. Something broken inside of Yian-Wu was reassembling, the sound of its movement reminding him of turning cogs. He exclaimed in astonishment over how his body was undergoing this process without any interference or direction. Are the springs pieces of divinity? Yian-Wu didn't know what the very small spring was since he hadn't seen it yet. All he had seen was a system message, but he could already feel that it had changed his body. His level had increased, and his divine positions were being created. There were two domains. One was something Yian-Wu was familiar with, death. As a result of combining with the demonism, the domain the demonism possessed was being introduced to Kronos, which meant Kronos was awakening as an apostle of the Black King. Yian-Wu was taken by surprise. I thought I'd be able to hear the Black King's voice since Kronos is the Black King's apostle. I guess not. Yian-Wu laughed at himself for thinking it would be that easy. Although it was true being an apostle could get you closer to the god you served, if speaking with the Black King were that easy, he wouldn't have had to go through all this trouble. He even thought it might even feel a bit dispiriting if he learned about the Black King like this. No, if the demonism's identity is what I think it is, becoming the Black King's apostle as a result of combining with him isn't too unexpected. If he could see Kronos' status window, it would probably say, Apostle of the Black King, under the title section. After combing with the demonism, Yian-Wu felt a powerful gaze looking at him from high above. No, it wasn't quite accurate to say it was from high above. It could be from below him or even right next to him. It was a gaze that watched him from beyond space or several dimensions away. He didn't know if it was the Black King himself. However, it was clear the owner of the gaze was so superior that mortals couldn't even imagine his strength, especially since the gaze could even focus on Kronos, a divine being who had conquered countless universes and dimensions. In contrast, the other domain created along with death was very unfamiliar, time. I thought this domain, like death, was from the Black King, but it's from Uranus. The holy power Uranus had given Kronos to put the demonism to sleep went through new changes after mixing with darkness. Its nature changed. Uranus symbolizes the sky, which means he rules over space, but did the power change to being able to move space itself through contact with darkness? Yian-Wu extended his hand. Wavy patterns appeared in space, and everything in the room suddenly stopped, the curtains shifting in the breeze, the flowers inside the vase that were about to fall, and even the air. However, this only lasted for a little while, and the world returned to its usual movement. Air flowed, and the curtains moved again. The range of this domain's power is too small and only works for a short while. How am I supposed to use it? Yian-Wu couldn't grasp how he was supposed to use this domain. If only I could identify the mechanisms to use the power, I might be able to use the domain even when the quest is over. Even if he failed the quest, he thought he'd be able to activate Kronos' power if he learned the structure of this power. He had a strong feeling that the method Mother Earth and Persephone used to steal holy power from the paused Kronos was related to this. Ding! Your understanding of the domain of death is profoundly high. Your understanding of time has dramatically increased. Your abilities to sense the springs have improved. The synchronization percentage has increased. 10% right pointing arrow 12%. This again. His forehead wrinkled when he saw the message that popped up. It was true, the synchronization percentage that began to appear after finding the very small spring was helpful. The more Kronos' synchronization percentage increased, the greater its effect on Yian-Wu's soul. In other words, Yian-Wu was stealing Kronos' legends, which meant his level and divine positions were growing as well. If Kronos became a supreme god as he had in the past, Yian-Wu's soul would grow significantly. Right now, Yian-Wu could barely reach that level after combining with the demonism. After this, he wouldn't have to use tricks like that anymore. But of course, this wasn't without its troubles. Why do you look so dumbfounded? When your father makes time to talk with you, you should at least try to pay attention to the conversation. Tisk. Yi Yanwu swallowed his emotions and turned. You're up. HMPH. I'm sure a vile son like you would hope I stay asleep forever, but that won't be happening. Uranus looked like an ordinary neighborhood old man. Yi Yanwu felt like his heart was being squeezed when he looked at Uranus. After giving Yi Yanwu all his holy power, Uranus looked visibly weaker. More wrinkles appeared on his face, his skin became drier, and more age spots appeared. The vigorous Uranus who had enthusiastically beat Yi Yanwu up was no more. Olympus was filled with uneasiness at the rumors that their king might fall. The tensions between the potential successors of the throne became worse, and a civil war seemed to be brewing. However, Yi Yanwu didn't pay attention to any of it and focused on caring for Uranus. He had no plans to get involved in a battle of power for the throne in a world that wasn't his. This was the only way he could think of to rid himself of his strange emotions around Uranus. The more his synchronization with Kronos progressed, the more intense his emotions became. Yi Yanwu was concerned that his ego might get lost in the legends at this rate. At the same time, he was taken aback that Kronos loved Uranus so much. I never wished for you to sleep eternally. Then, do you think I'd go that far? I only hoped you had a nice, restful sleep. What, you know, they say you start sleeping more when it's time to rest in peace. What? Uranus's eyebrow twitched. He contemplated slapping the brazen face that was spewing bullshit. Just as he considered using the last of his holy power to summon a bolt of lightning, the door suddenly burst open. Thud. Yi Yanwu instinctively stood in front of Uranus and activated his holy power. What is the meaning of this? Uranus's voice was genuinely furious, completely different from when he was bickering with Yi Yanwu. Soldiers marched in through the door and surrounded Yi Yanwu and Uranus. There was fear on their faces, but they still looked determined. It was impossible to think of such a thing happening in such a hierarchical godly society. There could only be one reason behind it. A coup. Stomp, stomp. Familiar faces walked through the sea of soldiers, and Yi Yanwu summoned more strength to protect Uranus. Dia, Iapetos, Hyperion, Phoebe, Krios, Koyos. Uranus seemed shocked that the adopted children he'd raised lovingly had incited a coup. How could you? The leader of the coup, Dia, spoke with a slight bow of her head. Father, you are responsible for this. A position like yours comes with responsibilities, but you weren't able to fulfill them. Dia glanced at Yi Yanwu with cold eyes and turned back to Uranus. You should have designated your successor clearly, but this is all a result of you spoiling our unsuitable youngest. You wicked. Do not worry, we'll take Olympus to greater heights. Our youngest will always be by your side as well. She was announcing that she would steal the throne and imprison Uranus and Yi Yanwu. Uranus wanted to drop a bolt of lightning on them while he still had the strength to do it, but he couldn't bring himself to. They were still children he had cherished. Yi Yanwu didn't take his eyes off of Uranus's trembling hand even as Dia and the others left, laughing scornfully. A civil war began. Oceanus managed to escape Dia's coup and raised his own forces against her. An unexpectedly large number of beings agreed with his mission to find Uranus, and Olympus grew divided. Yi Yanwu faced a decision to make as he watched Uranus's health rapidly decline. You have two choices. Your choice may influence whether or not you will be successful in finding the remaining springs. The synchronization percentage will also be heavily affected. Will you stay silent, or will you rise? In fact, he'd already made a decision. Yi Yanwu had already realized that the higher the synchronization percentage, the better the chances of finding the springs. He could raise the percentage by ensuring the legends were played out as they had happened in the past. Even if that weren't the case, he found it too difficult to continue looking at Uranus's suffering face. Everything was annoying. What did he have to do in order to turn the grim situation around? After contemplating for a short while, he realized there was only one thing he could do. That night, he secretly left Uranus's room. Their soldiers guarding him weren't able to stop him. What are you doing here? Rhea looked up from her book with a glare when she saw Yi Yanwu appear. The murderous intent was plain to see in her eyes. Right, the family of my mother wasn't on good terms with Kronos. Before Uranus integrated multiple godly societies into Olympus, Kronos' family and raised people fought a long war that lasted ages. Yi Yanwu had never learned the details, but Kronos had killed quite a few divine beings during this war, one of many that peppered the legends about the creation of the universe. Apart from that, Yian-Wu intentionally avoided Rhea because seeing her face made his heart ache. He didn't have the confidence to rein in his emotions. Even though he might ruin the quest, he had to face it now. Let's work together. Yian-Wu tried to control his shaking voice and said only what was necessary. However, Rhea seemed to interpret his attitude differently. She smirked. Why? Oh, I guess you want to sit on the throne now. Or was this your plan from the beginning? I thought you came to your senses and you were finally obeying father, but was that only to get on his good side? But things aren't going your way, so I don't care about any of that. I just don't want to watch this shitty situation any longer. If you want the throne, you can sit on it. Yian-Wu had never received a sharp look from his mother, and Rei's harsh gaze felt strange. However, he managed to endure it. Rhea narrowed her eyes and looked Yian-Wu up and down. She quietly muttered under her breath. Is he telling the truth? Impossible. Then, she slowly stood up. Fine, I don't know what you're scheming, but I'm also angry about what's happening. I'll turn a blind eye to your plans. How can our siblings be ruining the peace father created? Out of all the siblings, Rhea respected Uranus the most. Despite their resentment of Kronos' family, her people had joined Olympus because Uranus's ideals resonated deeply with her. But even if we work together, how do you plan on turning the tide? Right now, the situation is too delicate. You might divide Olympus further. Rhea was asking what he could contribute. I have a way. What is it? Yian-Wu's eyes flashed. Overwhelming power. Boom, boom. Fire blazed and storms whirled after countless attacks. The planet that had been chosen as the battleground was already in ruins and about to explode at any moment. It was a horrifying place destroyed by the clashing laws of nature. Thea's forces, who had taken over Olympus, and Oceanus' forces, who were trying to take it back, stopped at nothing to destroy each other. It was a war of the Titans, who were well known for being a warlike race. A huge number of divine beings were destroyed, and the blood of their soldiers stained the ground. However, neither side could declare a clear victory, and they were about to retreat when the world suddenly stopped. Boom! It was only for a short moment, but all physical laws and powers had stopped. But because their minds were intact, the divine beings screamed internally, shocked that Yian-Wu could control space with his domain alone and without resorting to enforcing his laws. Before they could get over their shock, another strange phenomenon followed. Black haze floated over the ground that flowed with lava. From it rose an army no one had seen before. The soldiers wore black helmets and armor and carried various weapons. The energy of death whirled around them, unnerving even some of the greater divine beings. What was even more shocking was that this army of death consisted of familiar faces. Open hollow corner bracket Saravesta. Why are you here? Open hollow corner bracket alone. You just died rescuing us. How? Open hollow corner bracket WH. What's going on? They were all dead soldiers from Thea and Oceanus forces. The living soldiers shouted the names of the beings in the army of death in shock, but they received no answer. The soldiers of death just stood still, exuding sharp auras. As soon as the dead beings of the battlefield rose again, they pointed their spears at both sides. The two sides froze. How could they defeat an enemy who stopped time and ruled over death? When Yian-Wu slowly appeared in the center of the army, all the divine beings on the battlefield were overwhelmed by the strength that stormed around him. He was the new Uranus. Everyone, stand down. Yian-Wu lifted a corner of his mouth. Unless you want to die and join my army. No one on the battlefield could hide their shock. Before Thea could speak, massive portals formed along the battlefield, and large armies began to appear. Whoosh! Their numbers were nearly equal to the forces already present on the battlefield. As soon as she saw them, Thea's face hardened. The army was led by Rhea. Among the major parties of Olympus, Rei's was the largest, and she essentially kept the balance among all the forces. Both Thea and Oceanus had tried unsuccessfully to get Rhea on their side, but Rhea rejected them, declaring her neutrality. To think she would join Kronos now. Rhea was not only leading her soldiers but also the army of Uranus, which hadn't made any moves since the start of the war. This was the army that pledged their allegiance only to the one on the throne. One had to prove one's qualifications to receive their support. It was clear where Uranus, who had remained silent until now, stood. Clang! Just then, Oceanus had suddenly dropped his weapon. Everyone turned to see the bright smile that suddenly replaced the frown that had been on his face ever since Thea had rebelled. It was as if he had been waiting for this moment. What are you doing? Hurry and greet the new king. Oceanus quickly got down on one knee as his voice rang throughout the battlefield. All his subordinates frantically bowed to Yi and Wu. Thea, Hyperion and the others instinctively turned to Thea, silently asking what she would do. Their fighting spirit was wavering. With Thea's surrender, everyone on the battlefield bowed to Olympus, new king. Greetings to the new king. You have discovered a very small spring. You have discovered a small spring. The synchronization percentage has drastically increased. 15% right pointing arrow 25%. In a great hall, muses lined up next to a long carpet as they played their instruments. Yi and Wu walked down the carpet and slowly ascended to the throne, wearing a crown on his head. It was the coronation ceremony. After ending the civil war, Olympus had found a new king with the blessing of Uranus. Throughout the ceremony, Oceanus' face was filled with pride even though he had technically lost the throne to his youngest sibling. Thea, Iapetos, and the other siblings continued to look displeased. However, no one objected. None of them forgot Yi and Wu's divine abilities. Stopping time and controlling death, these were powers beyond the laws of nature. It was impossible to pull off with ordinary divine abilities. No one wanted to get on his bad side. Most importantly, they were afraid of the way Yi and Wu sat emotionlessly on the throne, a position that other divine beings could only dream of. The past scoundrel who acted so impulsively and emotionally was gone, leaving behind a ruler who gazed down at the world. Everyone in the hall naturally bowed to his aura. It was the coming of a new Uranus. Meanwhile, the person in question was actually trying to hide his frustration. How long do I have to keep up this pretense? Yi and Wu thought everything would be over as soon as he sat on the throne, but it seemed like he'd have to continue with the legends for a while. He couldn't help feeling frustrated at the thought of how much time was passing back in reality. While he was trapped in here, Athena and the others might be in danger again. Do I have to stay here until the synchronization percentage reaches 100%? He felt chills running down his spine at the thought. The more his percentage increased, the more springs he would find. However, it also meant risking becoming one with Kronos and being lost in the legends. Even now, there were times when he couldn't separate Kronos' emotions from his. He would have to stay on guard, but that was easier said than done. Flinch, here comes Her Majesty. A faraway door to the hall opened, and Rhea appeared in fancy clothes. The throne next to Yi and Wu's was empty. You have discovered a very small spring. The synchronization percentage is continuing to increase. 27% right pointing arrow 32%. As he had promised her when they became allies, Yi and Wu and Rhea began to rule together. To facilitate this, they became a couple formally. However, it was obvious that the gods of Olympus feared Yi and Wu, not Rhea. Under Yi and Wu's iron fist, all the problems in Olympus were resolved, and his authority as king grew greater. It's a mystery that a foolish guy like you would do well. My only regret is that I'm leaving without being able to watch. After some time passed, what remained of Uranus's holy power was extinguished, and his time came. Yi and Wu had found out too late that Uranus had lost much of his divinity after Mother Earth invaded his mind when he was uniting Olympus. As a result, he had lost his immortality as a god. Even in that situation, he had given his remaining holy power to save Kronos. Yi and Wu couldn't help his complicated feelings. At this point, Yi and Wu considered Uranus family. Uranus's fatherly love still felt unfamiliar, so it was difficult for Yi and Wu to say, "Father." Besides, he knew Uranus's love was for Kronos, not him. However, the increased synchronization percentage helped Yi and Wu realize what love between a father and son was. "Where are you leaving? You should just stay. Just last night you beat my head with your cane. Haha, you still talk the same way. What a smart mouth." Uranus's wrinkled lips smiled gently. "But I like that impudence of yours. Even though you're the youngest, you've always talked back to your brothers and sisters fearlessly. Since you're all mature now, don't fight any longer. Peacefully. Father, father, enough joking around and get up, father." Tears dripped down Yi and Wu's face as he watched Uranus scatter into light. He felt as if something were squeezing his heart. A thought occurred to him. What if he could put his father into his shadow? Wouldn't he be able to prevent his passing? With that in mind, he extended his hand to Uranus, but another hand covered his before he could do anything. "Rhea, don't do anything unnecessary. Do you think father would want this?" But this would be an insult to him. At Ray's firm tone, Yi and Wu dropped his head. "Ding, you have discovered a large spring. The synchronization percentage has drastically increased. 45% right pointing arrow 52%. After Uranus's dissolution, Yin Wu lived with a single purpose. Now that he succeeded Uranus to the throne, he wanted to fulfill what Uranus couldn't finish. He came to the conclusion that he needed to expand Olympus. Olympus had just begun its climb up the godly hierarchy, and he wanted to lead it to the most powerful position so that it would eventually become a society that led all others. He still needed to handle the discontented people in Olympus and create feelings of solidarity. Although he didn't notice, for some time now, Yin Wu had been considering himself as Kronos more than Cha Yin Wu. With Yin Wu's mission of uniting the godly societies, Olympus began a full-fledged war of conquest. Battlefields, where death was abundant, were like an endless source of power for him. The longer the war went on, the more renowned Olympus became among the godly societies. Above all, the contributions of Uranus's adopted children shone the most brightly. Other divine beings began to call them Titans. How much time passed? 1,000 years, 10,000. As incalculable time flowed, Yin Wu's ego was slowly buried. You have discovered a large spring. The synchronization percentage is continuing to increase. 55% right pointing arrow 61%. 64% right pointing arrow 70%. 71% right pointing arrow 76%. The springs you already possess are being wound faster. The legends are being played at twice the speed. Warning: your ego is experiencing extreme confusion. It is growing difficult to maintain your ego as ###. You are falling into deep hibernation. How much time had passed? An unexpected variable has occurred. Your reason is being maintained with the cold-blooded trait. Your dormant state has been released. You have newfound resistance against dormancy. What? Yin Wu regained consciousness, feeling an excruciating pain from the noise in his head. He realized that he didn't possess Kronos anymore, and instead he was in Kronos' conscious mind. Below him, a being that was either him or Kronos led a large army against Mother Earth, who seemed to cover the entire universe. No, it wasn't him. It was Kronos. His own identity was buried under the legends of the gigantic being. Open hollow corner bracket this time, I'm going to rip at least one wing off you so that we're even, Gaia. Close hollow corner bracket. Open hollow corner bracket. You are cursed like your father with death at the hands of your child. Whoosh. Kronos was immeasurably stronger compared to when Yin Wu first sat on the throne. It was like he had almost reached the Emperor level. After stopping the flow of the universe with his left hand to bind Mother Earth, he manifested death as a scythe in his right hand and swung it towards her. Even as she fell, Mother Earth used the last of her strength to curse Kronos. Then, she dispersed into small particles, her existence erased. However, all the divine beings present knew Mother Earth hadn't been destroyed and that she had only entered hibernation. A conceptual god couldn't be completely destroyed. If that were possible, the laws creating the universe would also collapse, and all universes and space itself would be crushed. All the divine beings could do was temporarily eliminate her. However, her fall surprised the gods of Olympus and other divine beings. Who else in the universe could defeat Mother Earth, whose existence was a threat to all? Since he was sleeping deeply somewhere and the heavenly demon was probably busy subjugating gods and demons in another location, it seemed that no one else could stand against Kronos in this age, not even the gods of the other societies. Kronos arrogantly accepted their gazes. Only Yin Wu, who was watching from above, realized what was happening to him. The curse of Mother Earth has started to invade Kronos, just as it did with Uranus. Yin Wu thought he now understood why his ego was separated from Kronos again. Did the curse cause confusion in Kronos' mind and allow me to leave? Yin Wu was surprised. With his strength, he thought that he wouldn't have to worry about his ego disappearing no matter how much time passed. But as he hid his ego as Yin Wu, put on Kronos' appearance, lived as Kronos, and thought as Kronos, he had completely synchronized with Kronos. The synchronization percentage is continuing to increase. 91% right pointing arrow 94%. The synchronization percentage is already over 90%. He was behind on a lot of messages, and he realized that he had a lot of springs. Yin Wu gritted his teeth. At this rate, his ego would get swept away again. The quest didn't seem to be ending anytime soon. He needed to find a way, but that wouldn't be easy. He felt a strange energy from Kronos' compromised mind. Demonism. The demonism, who had been contained by Uranus's holy power, began to leak out, infecting Kronos' mind. Madness filled Kronos' eyes. After putting Mother Earth to sleep, Kronos ruled as the most superior god. There were still divine beings who were as powerful as Kronos, like Odin or the Yellow Emperor, but no one dared to challenge his authority. Kronos left a strong impression on many divine beings, and his powers, which transcended the laws of nature, made them wary. Only those like Cernunnos, who were strong enough to roam around without a society, could go toe-to-toe with him. Eventually, Kronos was considered the closest thing to an emperor besides the conceptual gods and progenitor gods. Olympus' renown only became greater. The godly societies grew to fear the titans who led Olympus. He's barely holding on with his stronger mental capacity, but the effects of the curse are becoming worse. The demonism is awakening. However, Yi and Wu could see that Kronos was in a precarious situation. However, Kronos himself wasn't aware of the changes, and by the time he figured it out, he only thought of overcoming the curse that had eaten away at Uranus. This is retribution that I must endure. Kronos couldn't tell anyone around after seeing what happened to Uranus when he was taken by the curse. He needed to plant fear in his enemies and behave as though he would sit on the throne forever. He had to be an impregnable fortress for his allies. It was like homework that he had to do himself. Kronos, you seem different these days. Is something the matter? Of course, Rhea, who was closest to Kronos, noticed the changes quickly. No, it's nothing. However, Kronos coldly rejected her help. He didn't want her to be involved with his issues. A long time had passed since the two had wedded. Although they had done so for political reasons, they already had a couple's affection for each other. Time flowed past, and Kronos grew harsher as a result of the curse. Eventually, he turned into a tyrant, and rebellions began to spring up here and there. Some occurred in places that didn't acknowledge Olympus' authority, and there were also forces in Olympus that were displeased by his rule as well. However, none of them could defeat Kronos. He placed them all in the abyss that even the gods of Olympus feared to see in their dreams, Tartarus. It seemed as though Kronos' rule would last forever. Kronos, are you insane? How could you put the Hecatoncheires in such a place? Bam! One day, Rhea slammed the door open and stormed into Kronos' office. She was panting heavily from running, her face twisted in fury. Kronos had just received a report from Atlas. He sent Atlas away and turned to Rhea with an indifferent face. Was it because he had sat on the throne for too long? It was difficult to see the impulsive scoundrel that he'd once been in his younger days, and the only thing left were cold eyes and an impassive face. Rhea, this is the palace. What about behaving more prudently since walls have ears? Sorry, but I don't intend to listen to the words of a tyrant. I can't let this one go. The Hecatoncheires, why are they in Tartarus? Ah, that. Rhea became angrier at Kronos' dispassionate expression. Uranus had cherished the Hecatoncheires as much as he had the Titans. The monstrous-looking creatures were all strong enough to overwhelm the Titans, and they were also the gatekeepers of Olympus. If one looked at the bloodlines, the Hecatoncheires shared more blood with Uranus than Uranus did with either Kronos or Rhea. In fact, that was why there had been talk at the start about the Hecatoncheires inheriting the throne instead. Unlike the other Titans, who distanced themselves from the Hecatoncheires because they didn't want more rivals, Rhea maintained a special relationship with them. She had been on her way to meet them, only to learn that they had been incarcerated. Of course, she couldn't help being enraged. Because they've sinned. What? We suppressed Thea some time ago, and they've been charged with being her accomplices. Thea was caught before she could progress with her plans, and the Hecatoncheires only went to talk with her. They didn't know what it was going to be about. If they haven't sinned, it will be revealed during the investigation. Kronos. Rhea realized that Thea was just an excuse, and Kronos wasn't planning to release the Hecatoncheires. He only wanted to strengthen his authority and didn't plan on leaving anyone who shared Uranus's blood alone. Rhea grew even more frustrated. Who would challenge his power and his legitimacy as ruler now? The more time passed, the more distant Kronos grew. Unlike the first years of his rule, he no longer cared about his siblings, woes or encouraged the gods. He was now a tyrant who suppressed and eliminated anyone who argued with him. Rhea felt pity for him. Where was the Kronos who'd boldly declared to advance Uranus's mission? Who was this monster in his place? She had started to open up to him, but that wouldn't be possible anymore. However, Kronos didn't seem to care. Rather, his gaze was focused on Rhea's stomach. Rhea, you. I don't want to speak with you. Are you pregnant? Kronos' cold eyes shook for the first time, but Rhea covered her stomach and turned away. I said, I don't want to speak with you anymore. How can you say that with my child in your belly? Kronos quickly stood and grabbed Rhea's arm. Rhea raised her arm to slap her husband, but when he went down on one knee and stared at her stomach, she flinched. Kronos carefully stroked Rhea's stomach. My child, although the two had been married for a long time, they didn't have a child yet since they had only recently shared romantic feelings with each other. Also, they found it difficult to conceive a child. However, for the first time, their efforts were successful. A smile appeared on Kronos' face. You have the warmth of your mother. I will call you Hestia so you can cherish that warmth forever. Rhea couldn't do anything other than look at Kronos wordlessly. After Hestia was born, the couple had two more daughters, Demeter and Hera. Then, they had sons named Hades and Poseidon. The gods of Olympus who had been worried about the line of succession breathed in relief. For some time, Kronos focused more on his family than anything else. Rhea regained her laughter as Kronos seemed to return to his old self. However, the curse of Mother Earth still lingered in a part of his heart. You are cursed, like your father, with death at the hands of your child. Kronos, what is the meaning of this? What? Don't worry, Rhea, my children will be safe in my emptiness. Forever. No, no, Rhea shouted when she saw the madness in Kronos' eyes. Their precious children, from Hestia to Poseidon, had entered Kronos' mouth into the emptiness that could swallow everything in the world. The considerate father who had laughed and played with their children just yesterday was gone. Rhea finally realized that Kronos wasn't the same person. She was looking at something who wore Kronos' appearance. However, Kronos believed that he was only acting in a logical manner. Mother Earth's curse was too powerful to disregard since the words of a conceptual god were binding. Rhea gritted her teeth. At the very least I have to protect Zeus. She had kept her pregnancy a secret in order to surprise Kronos, but now, it seemed that she had to continue doing so for the child's sake. She escaped Olympus, full of determination. Your name is Zeus, from the old god of gods, Zeus. Grow up to be as great as he was. Rhea wiped her tears as she looked at the baby in her arms. She felt painfully sorry for her youngest child, who wouldn't have his parents' love like his siblings. She won't be too far from here. Chase after her. She heard the voices of the pursuers that Kronos sent after her. I love you, my son. Rhea lightly kissed Zeus' forehead and set him afloat down the river. Then, she turned to face her pursuers. They would not find Zeus, no matter what. I've come to kill you, Kronos. One day, after some time had passed, a fully grown Zeus appeared to challenge Kronos. He was a genius who retained his memories from when he was a baby, and he used these memories to clear through the hurdles of fate and become a great divine being. Kronos' madness had grown worse after he swallowed his children, and his mind had nearly been completely infected by the curse. The demonism had put Kronos' reason to sleep, and the only thing left in Kronos was a sense of duty to carry out Uranus's mission. No one can take my throne, this is what my father left me. To Kronos, Zeus was only an enemy getting in the way of his mission. He didn't realize that Zeus had received Oceanus' help to force Kronos vomit out the children he'd swallowed. Father has changed so much, it pains me to see this. After waiting in the emptiness for their escape, Hades and the other siblings gripped their chests in pain when they saw their fallen father. However, for the sake of their mother, Rhea, who had sacrificed herself to save them, they needed to stop Kronos. War began. It was the beginning of the first Titanomachia. After leading the long road to victory, the three new rulers of Olympus bound Kronos with divine iron and made their decisions. Open hollow corner bracket I will take Kronos' divine ability. Hades stole the divine ability of death that induced fear in countless divine beings. Open hollow corner bracket I will take Kronos' holy power. Poseidon took Uranus's holy power, which had allowed Kronos to become so powerful. Open hollow corner bracket I will take Kronos' faith. And finally, Zeus took over Kronos' temples throughout the universe and sat on Olympus' throne. Open hollow corner bracket finally, Kronos will be incarcerated in Tartarus. At the command of the new supreme gods, Kronos was stripped of everything and locked up in Tartarus like the traitors. No, succeed father. Defeat the traitors, lead Olympus. Kronos tried a final move using what was left of his mind. He pulled out the most important component of his existence, the clockwork. Even though he was being devoured by the demonism, Kronos occasionally regained his senses and made multiple preparations. The domains of time and death transcended the laws of nature, so he needed to organize them once in a while. He had been organizing his legends under the keyword, clock. Springs were the main component of his clockwork. They were the core and energy, as well as the keys that allowed Kronos to function. Kronos tossed the spring into the unknown without anyone realizing, not even Olympus or the heavenly world. Although he didn't know when it would happen, one day, the spring would land somewhere and grow. It meant that one day, he would return to life. This is simply part of life. Crops are harvested in autumn. Plants die in winter, and spring brings new life. I will also get past this winter and find my spring. This spring will be the seed. The springs wove through universes and space until they eventually reached a location. Yian-Wu pressed his lips together when he saw where the spring fell. It was a familiar blue planet. Earth. It was Yian-Wu and Jung-Wu's birthplace. So, Kronos threw his ego, the springs, to Earth. After living and watching Kronos' life, Yian-Wu knew how important the springs were. Essentially, they were Kronos himself. They were the core of the legends Kronos had built up over eons from the beginning of the universe. They were cogs in a wheel that allowed the massive domains of time and death to turn smoothly. Since he had thrown them out, his divinity would weaken. When his divine ability of time paused, his body paused as well. The Titans thought death had overtaken Kronos, and in a way, they were right since technically, Kronos' existence was dead. However, his legends still continued. Where is this? An ego separated from Kronos slowly opened his eyes. The senses that he'd forgotten seemed to come to life. He could see the night sky, smell flowers, and feel a breeze whispering against his skin vividly. At the same time, an unidentifiable pain throbbed throughout his entire body, but that felt good, too. The feeling of being alive was invigorating. I guess I woke up, even though I don't know where this place is. Kronos instinctively gripped space to learn where he was, but he could only feel air sliding through his fingers. He smiled bitterly. The fact that he lost everything struck him. The immense powers that could transcend creation were nowhere to be found, and the strength that encompassed the entire universe was gone. The world of his conscious mind was so small that it felt uncomfortable, as if he were being bound by an invisible rope. He had once been considered as almost at the emperor level, but now he was a mere mortal. However, his sense of loss only lasted a short while. Kronos shook it off and stood. He was the youngest of all his siblings, but he had taken the throne. Even though he was immortal now, it wouldn't matter if he regained his strength. Since he was taking a path that he had already walked on, he believed it wouldn't take too long. Above all, Kronos was pleased with the clarity of his mind. This isn't too bad. Actually, it's better than I thought. As he'd sat on the throne, he'd suffered agonizing headaches due to the demonism shaking up his consciousness. The only solutions he could think of to escape the situation had ended horribly, but he was fine now. It felt refreshing. He had completely escaped from the madness. I don't know if this is because I'm now separate from the demonism, but it is nice. He felt as if he returned to his youth. In fact, since he retained his memory of the past, which he didn't have before, he had a great advantage. He would be able to make reasonable and wise decisions. He was confident that most things wouldn't take him by surprise, and his psychological shield was also at its peak. What would be a good name for his condition? Cold-blooded. Yes, that sounds good. Kronos smiled. There was no better way to describe him. To others, he appeared as a cruel and heartless father trying to reclaim the throne that his children had taken. The first thing Kronos did was to investigate the planet he was on, but he still had no idea where he was. Although he had ruled over countless universes and dimensions and observed a myriad of civilizations, he had never seen or heard of a planet like this. Is this the territory of some other society? It was definitely possible. Even though Olympus had prospered and expanded during his reign, he hadn't dominated all universes. There were many godly societies, after all, and a few of them were equal to Olympus. Kronos first tried to determine whose territory this was. If it's a society that will assist me, I'll recover my strength faster, but if not, I'll have to be warier. Divine beings were extremely sensitive about their territory. They often eliminated trespassers without asking any questions, and this was the last thing Kronos wanted. No, maybe it's better to lie low until the time comes. Realizing that it was possible a society might report him to Olympus, he changed his mind. Yesterday's allies often became today's enemies, so it was feasible that such a thing might happen. Most importantly, he didn't know how much time had passed while the springs traveled through universes. He also didn't know the hierarchy and order of the societies. What I need most is information. I don't know anything right now. As he slowly walked forward, he began to lay out his plans. I must build up strength first. Kronos learned that the beings of the planet called this place, Earth. Unfortunately, Kronos had never heard of it. He racked his brain, thinking of the territories of most societies, but nothing came to mind. It might be possible that it's a territory on the outskirts and hasn't been discovered yet. The beings of the planet he lived in were young creatures who believed Earth was the only living planet in the universe. It was a civilization that had only begun to take its first steps. This is for the best. It'll be easier to create legends this way. The less advanced a civilization was, the more superstitions they were and the greater their expectations of heroes and gods. The folklore among their people would grow bigger until a religion was born. That was where faith began. It was the reason why godly societies that needed faith tried desperately to find new civilizations. I will use this place as my holy territory to rise again. After that, Kronos lived an innumerable number of lives. His spring had the qualities of both time and death, so he could reincarnate again and again. With each new life, Kronos became a hero and made many contributions that normal humans could never achieve. They turned into legends and spread throughout the civilizations and tribes of the world. Countless religions worshipping him sprouted up and declined. Kronos gained many names, but he couldn't remember them all. At some point, he also forgot his true name, Kronos, because no one called him by that name. He only managed to retain his identity because of how powerful he'd been in his original body. As his various lives on Earth continued, he realized something strange. Why do I hear of Olympus legends here? Is this Olympus territory? I even heard of Asgard in one of my past lives. How was this possible? Many new religions of Earth depicted the godly societies, shocking Kronos. The legends of different societies couldn't be told at the same time. The fact that mortals could understand the legends of transcendence so accurately made him uneasy. What was even more surprising was that he never saw any divine beings, even as Earth continued to advance. It's like something is interfering to eliminate them or seal them somewhere. Earth's civilization continued to develop, and soon, his achievements became only village tales. They were no longer legends. His progress finally met a wall. Just a little more, and I could have exuviated. Kronos was no longer suspicious of Earth. He pondered how he could clear this final wall. After exuviation, it wouldn't be that long until he transcended, but he had to get past this first. Even though his strength had been built up throughout his reincarnations, he hadn't even reached 10,000 years. It was nothing compared to the amount of time he had lived as Kronos. He found it hard to keep his composure. Most importantly, Earth wasn't progressing towards a magic-based civilization or an enchantment-based civilization. Instead, it was on the path of technology and science. These types of civilizations focused less on the supernatural, which religions needed, and more on evidence-based studies. It was difficult for a divine being in this environment. In the end, Kronos felt the need to change his plans for the first time. Am I an orphan this time? It would have been nice to be the youngest son of a millionaire. Kronos realized he had reincarnated in an orphanage located on the periphery of South Korea. His eyes narrowed. He had no intentions of accomplishing feats or becoming a hero. Instead of creating legends for himself, those would only get him branded as a witchcraft practitioner. He was going to live easily and slowly organize his thoughts. Since he needed a change of direction if he wanted to exuviate and transcend, he would take this opportunity to come up with something. Flock. Ow. At present, Kronos was just a 5-year-old child, and the pain on his forehead made him jump to attention. Kids shouldn't frown like that from such a young age. Who said that's okay? Kronos moaned, gripping his bruised forehead, and glanced up. A girl who looked 2 years older was looking down at him with her chubby hands on her hips. Suddenly, the memories of the child appeared in Kronos' head. The girl was like the drill instructor of the orphanage. She was so mighty and assertive that even the boys older than her couldn't do anything. I'll punish you if you do that again. As he looked at the confident girl, Kronos felt like things were already going downhill. Kronos was correct. After that day, the girl followed Kronos everywhere and nagged him. Have you eaten? You're tiny. You'd better go to the cafeteria. I heard you ditched school today. Wanna die? So, you hit your friend again. What will you amount to when you grow up? Aren't you studying? Kronos desperately needed some time to himself, so he felt like he was going insane. And her name is La. The girl's name was Shin La. Their orphanage was managed by a church, and the children had been given baptismal names. In the Bible, Leah was the mother of Judas, who was Jesus' ancestor. There was nothing strange about it, but the pronunciation of the name pricked Kronos' heart with a needle. Although Kronos was so busy that he almost forgot his own name, he couldn't forget Ray's name that easily. It bothered him whenever he went to sleep. He knew that he only ever hurt her, and he couldn't even apologize to her. There was always some guilt at the bottom of his heart. It was so bad that sometimes whenever Shinla bothered him, he felt like she was the real Rhea, who was watching from above. After some time, the nagging felt like warm interest, and Kronos began to see Rhea in Shinla. For the first time in thousands of years, he felt love. Idiot, what took you so long? Took you long enough. I gave you so many hints, gosh. You made it so difficult. When he nervously confessed to her, Laa's scolding was all he got back. However, Kronos learned what an ordinary life was like for the first time after marrying Shinla. Working a job, going on dates, and returning home hand in hand after exhausting lives spent building up legends, it was a heartwarming lifestyle. He wanted to live like this forever. Kronos, thoughts of creating legends fell away. He no longer wanted to grow stronger. What was so important about a future that might never happen? It was a future that was now a mere illusion. His reality with Shinla was much more important than that. These are my children, Kronos' eyes shook when he looked at the ultrasound Shinla showed him. Shinla carefully stroked her stomach, and her eyes narrowed. Idiot, I told you to be careful. You came home like a beast after getting drunk that time and I have to go to graduate school, but look at this. I'll kill you if you say you don't remember. Haha, of course not, my child, our child, and two of them, we have two at once. Shinla couldn't help grinning at the sight of Kronos jumping in excitement. The pregnancy was a surprise, but she was happy. However, since they would have two more members to add to their already financially strapped household, they would have to rack their brains to find a way to meet their expenses. Kronos stopped jumping and looked a bit melancholy. Laa cocked her head. What's with the gloomy face? And nothing. I'm fine. Kronos couldn't say that the ultrasound made him think of the children he'd had with Rhea in the past. Hestia, Demeter, Hera, Hades, Poseidon and the poor child he'd never been able to love, Zeus. Once upon a time, he resented them, but now he felt like he knew the despair and frustration they must have felt. He felt remorseful and apologetic towards his children and Rhea. Is it because of Zeus and the others? When Shinla suddenly said those words, Kronos' head whipped around towards her. She was smiling at him. Don't worry too much. They're doing fine tearing away at each other. Laa, why you, idiot, I gave you all those hints but you still didn't catch on. Kronos was speechless. Do you really have to make me say it? Hey, what's with you? Kronos pulled Shinla to him tearfully. He stroked her head again and again. There was only one thing he could say to her. I love you. I really love you, Rhea. Obelisk, everyone's trapped in a place called the Tower. Kronos asked with an incredulous expression. Shinla just nodded firmly. Yeah, it's the truth. We also feel wronged at this situation, so I can only imagine how shocked you are. No way. Kronos plopped down on a sofa and laughed in disbelief. The heavenly demon had been active even around the time Uranus united Olympus and Kronos defeated Mother Earth. There wasn't much known about him, but despite his name as a demon from the heavens, he was a being of light and existed wherever light reached. It was said that he represented the emergence of mortals from the dark to learn the laws of the world. Unlike divine beings, who needed mortals' faith, hardly any civilizations knew of the heavenly demon's existence, which was why many godly societies considered the heavenly demon a nuisance. It was difficult to come up with countermeasures against him when they didn't know what his intentions were. However, the heavenly demon had trapped godly societies like Olympus, and even demons, dragons, and giants in the world of the Tower. When Kronos first heard about it from Shinla, he asked if it was really possible. Should I tell you something funnier? There's more. Of course, gods and demons are trapped on the same floor. They're friendly neighbors now. Kronos was speechless. Well, the floor is larger than most universes, but problems inevitably occur with all those guys stuck in one place. So, they're all busy tussling with each other every day. Kronos still couldn't say anything. I left because I hated that. Kronos was so surprised that he found it hard to breathe. The cold-blooded trait he was so proud of didn't seem to be working. He was too perturbed. Gods were beings who traveled and roamed various universes and dimensions. The same went for the demons, who didn't have much contact with the gods, despite their wariness of each other. The gods were also aware that dragons and giants were powerful beings who could threaten them. But now, everyone was stuffed in the same place. It was like trapping a free-spirited human traveler in a 50-square-meter space filled with dozens of roommates. It was natural for trapped beings to become sensitive now that they lacked freedom to move around. There would be endless conflicts and arguments. And if beings with multiple powers and achievements who freely traveled the many universes and dimensions were trapped, Kronos couldn't even begin to imagine what would happen. Shinla had called this God sealing. The heavenly demon had really succeeded in making this possible, even managing to trap Olympus with Zeus and the others as well. I guess this makes sense, in a way. Kronos felt as though some of the questions he'd nursed for a long time were being answered. Although he had built up countless legends and grown his strength, he'd never sensed any divine beings or transcendence. Normally, societies would fight among themselves to recruit a human who might become a new divine being. Their silence was the reason he had believed Earth was located at the end of the universe, or it was in a universe that gods hadn't sensed yet. But if they're all trapped, it makes sense. They couldn't come into contact with Earth. That means there isn't a single transcendent in all the universes and dimensions. Was there a reason why the heavenly demon had eliminated all transcendence? Was it simply to become the only god? That didn't seem right. If that were his goal, he would have destroyed all the transcendents instead of just sealing them. Besides, the heavenly demon that Kronos remembered had no interest in power like that. The heavenly demon could be politely described as a free spirit, but in less flattering terms, he was a bully. He was different from the typical authoritative divine beings. The heavenly demon had left such a strong impression on Kronos when they first met that Kronos had tried to copy him, and a lot of his early days as a scoundrel were a result of this influence. Even if he eliminated the transcendents, their spots would be filled again by new beings who exuviated and transcended. Chills ran down Kronos' back when the thought occurred to him. Shinla had said the tower sometimes invited powerful beings through the universes and dimensions through trials. That means he's trapping anyone with potential and ability in there, too. Kronos realized how enticing the heavenly demon's trap was. He had been asleep too long, and the entire world had changed. Wait, then, a sudden thought occurred to him. If the tower was a prison that trapped all transcendents and those as powerful as they were, how did Shinla escape? Rhea, why you? Shinla smiled wryly seeing Kronos' shaking eyes. It just happened. That's not something that can just happen. Why you? What else was I supposed to do? I wouldn't be able to see you if I didn't do this. Kronos felt his world go dark. Shinla had gotten rid of her own divinity to leave the tower. Losing one's divinity was the most humiliating punishment a divine being could receive. It meant you had fallen. You would lose the blessing of immortality gained from transcendence. Not only would your powers and achievements disappear, the level of your soul would plummet, and your existence could vanish. Kronos wouldn't have attempted it if he didn't have the springs that allowed him to reincarnate, but Shinla had thrown everything away without a backup plan just to meet her terrible husband. It was really hard to find you. How did you hide yourself so well? It took such a long time. Shinla just laughed it off, but Kronos felt like all he could see was the remainder of Shinla's short life. If she had fallen, it meant she didn't have much time to live. It's a relief. I didn't know what I would do if you were still twisted inside. Good thing you got a grip on yourself. Rhea, what? I'm going to save you, no matter what. Shinla's eyes widened, and she grinned. Looks like you've matured. But, it's too bad. Don't do anything unnecessary and let's just make the best of our remaining time together. Kronos couldn't bring himself to answer. The twins were born. The first was named Yian Wu, and the second was named Jung Wu. There were all kinds of thoughts in Kronos' mind as the sleeping baby's tiny hand gripped his finger. Oh my, looks like our oldest really likes his dad. Shinla burst into laughter as she looked at the wrapped Kronos. However, Kronos could see the exhaustion in her eyes. It wasn't just childbirth. Holy power was leaking out of her like water out of a cracked pot. Kronos bit his lower lip. Childbirth had taken a great toll on her. He couldn't completely enjoy the bliss of his baby holding his finger. From then, Kronos' absences grew more frequent as he searched for a way to heal Shinla's illness that wasn't an illness. He needed to stop the holy power from leaking and restore her lost strength. The method he used on himself didn't work on her. He looked high and low on Earth for rare herbs, but it was difficult to find them in a place that relied on scientific progress. Moreover, he had already consumed the few herbs he'd found during his past lives to restore his own strength. It was impossible to find more. I was going to do this after transcending, but I have no other choice. In the end, Kronos had to make a decision. He forced together all the achievements he'd built up on Earth into a legend and attempted exuviation. Although it was an imperfect exuviation, it was enough to open portals that he could use with the coordinates he remembered. As time went on, he spent less time at home. Idiot, the kids are uncomfortable around you. Although Shinla harshly scolded Kronos, she looked at his injured body with worried eyes. Kronos could see that Yianwu and Jungwoo were growing, but he felt just as uncomfortable around them as they did around him. The trauma of the pain he'd caused Zeus and the others made him ask himself if he deserved to be the father of these cute twins. Shinla just scolded him again and again when he doubted himself. Yianwu is like me, and Jungwoo is like his mother. He didn't know how it was possible for brothers to be so different even though they shared the same face and genes. Yianwu was just like how Kronos had been in his youth. He hated being still, enjoyed going outside, and didn't like books. On the other hand, Jungwoo was quiet and enjoyed staying home. Like his mother, he was a good speaker, and sometimes he was unbearably impudent, but he had a certain charm that pulled people to him. That might have been the reason why he was closer to Jungwoo. Yianwu had a sharp personality and distanced himself, but Jungwoo always greeted him with a shout, smiling brightly as he ran into Kronos' arms. "Dad, did you bring anything today? That hourglass you brought last time was really pretty." "Yes, of course, I brought something." Sometimes, he felt like his frequent absences meant that he was susceptible to extortion, but since it was his son, he didn't mind. Not at all. "Dad, Mom is really sick." "Yes, I know. She's getting worse. What should we do?" Kronos didn't know what to say as he looked at Jungwoo, who wasn't happy despite his gift. Kronos knew that he was responsible for Shinla's illness. Still, he thought it would soon be over. Just a little more. He found a way to restore his lost strength in the old land of the giants. Even though it wasn't a perfect method, it was enough to restore some holy power. Shinla would smile again, and they could become the happy family they'd always dreamed of being. Although it would take a while to make amends with Yianwu, he knew Yianwu was soft at heart and would understand. However, things took longer than expected in the land of the giants. Even though he hadn't finished his task, he returned home for a while to check on Shinla. "But, Dad, what if I left home for a while to look for Mom's medicine?" Jungwoo greeted him with an unexpected question. "Don't do anything unnecessary and focus on your studies. I heard you're already in your senior year." "Haha, you know I'm smart. It's Yianwu you should be worried about." "That's true. Anyway, don't do anything weird. Just study, okay?" Kronos didn't think too much of it, believing that Jungwoo was only stressed from his college entrance exams. By the time he discovered the truth, it was too late. "What?" Jungwoo entered the tower. "Dear, what should we do? What should we do?" Shinla tried to think of solutions. Her face, which was already pale from losing too much holy power, grew even whiter. Kronos felt his heart sink. Why did Jungwoo go to the tower? Is this what he meant when he asked about Rei's medicine? Kronos clenched his fists. For the first time, he cursed his fate. Jungwoo had likely been chosen to enter the tower because of his potential. Although they had fallen, his parents had once been supreme gods. The monstrous tower couldn't help desiring him. Since there were treasures and riches in the tower, there was most likely a way to cure Shinla's illness, too. But no parent wouldn't be concerned about their child entering such a dangerous place. "I thought you wouldn't make me worry like Yianwu does. I guess you are my son after all." His father, Uranus, himself, his children, Yianwu and Jungwoo. Why was his family filled with guys like this? Kronos wanted to pull Jungwoo out of the tower by his ear. As he gripped his anxious wife's hand, he said solemnly, "Don't worry too much. I'll bring him back, no matter what." Kronos was going to enter the tower himself. "You have now arrived at floor 0, the tutorial. This is the tower." Kronos's eyes narrowed at the stone path that appeared once the light was gone. There was a window at the bottom area of his vision that was familiar. "So, these are the system messages. It looks like a hologram from a game." It occurred to him that these were similar to things he'd encountered on Earth, but he put those thoughts aside. "I need to find Jungwoo first. His son was definitely somewhere here." Just as he was about to release his magic power to find Jungwoo, an intense wave of magic power that made Kronos freeze appeared. Open hollow corner bracket. "You're someone I never imagined would appear in a place like this." What to do now? This being's strength could rip apart most divine beings. When Kronos lifted his head, the magic power combined, and a being of white light appeared. It was Alpharon. "Where is this place?" Kronos rubbed his throbbing temples and forced his eyes open. This is the 77th floor, the gate of light. You do not have permission to be on this floor. Your movements will be severely limited. The 77th floor, he squinted in confusion. You're up. Sitting in front of him was an unfamiliar middle-aged man. He looked intelligent and had a faint smile on his face. And you are, Nodesty Chachet Ferenc. Long, isn't it? Well, you can just call me Ferenc or address me as Count. And, Count Ferenc's smile deepened. I also happen to be the person that healed you. Kronos was about to ask what he was talking about, but he froze as the memories resurfaced. He had entered the tutorial to take Jungwoo back home and saw a strange being surrounded in light. The being was so strong that Kronos didn't know if he could defeat the being even in his prime. The being suddenly attacked, and Kronos fought back despite not knowing what was going on. In the end, he was defeated quickly, and when he woke up, he was here. It was a world filled with white light. However, despite what one might expect, it didn't feel bright or uncomfortable. Instead, it was warm and comforting. If Kronos didn't need to find Jungwoo, he would have wanted to stay in a place like that. As if they had the same thought, many beings wandered the white world, moving without purpose. Where was this place? He was sure it wasn't the tutorial. This is a prison, Count Ferenc said. Kronos turned to him questioningly, and Count Ferenc raised a corner of his mouth. Your face told me you were wondering where you were. A prison. What do you mean? I mean it literally. This place is a prison for the people that damned Alpharon has caught. Count Ferenc's smile seemed a bit melancholy. This is a world that Alpharon created. A kind of illusory world, if you will, or you can say that this world is Alpharon himself. No one can leave or enter without his permission. That strange being had to be Alpharon. Kronos stiffened. He didn't understand anything Count Ferenc said, but he realized that he was trapped. You seem somewhat familiar. Have we met before? Before Count Ferenc could finish his question, Kronos stood up and began to summon his holy power. Although his exuviation was imperfect, the holy power that had once dominated many godly societies whirled along the spring inside his heart. SSSS's. Count Ferenc was about to say that using holy power was pointless in this place, but his eyes widened when he saw the black holy power spinning around Kronos. The power that he and his wife had sought but never gained was right in front of him. Why is darkness? All the other beings trapped in the white world turned to them. Kronos released his holy power with all his might. Wisps of it rained down in the white world. Boom, boom, the world shook with loud explosions. Damn it, no matter how much holy power he used against the illusory world, Kronos couldn't make a single dent. He didn't even know how much time had passed as he tried. You can't, not in here. Kronos whipped around. Count Ferenc was smiling bitterly. Do you think the others and I didn't try? One of us even tried for 100 years. We even tried working together. But we failed each time. The world didn't budge. Alpharon is just a monster. Count Ferenc looked away, and Kronos followed the direction of his gaze. Sometimes Alpharon is generous and lets us see the outside world. In one corner, a woman was hugging her knees as she sat on the ground facing a wall. Suddenly, the wall trembled and began to show images from the tutorial that was currently going on. How do I use that? Kronos frantically asked Count Ferenc for instructions. Then, he shook the wall as the Count directed. The wall rippled and showed him what he wanted to see. Jungwoo was there. Kronos couldn't hear what he was saying, but he could see Jungwoo was fighting monsters with a half-giant and a pretty girl. He must be your kid. Kronos couldn't tear himself away for a while, but eventually, he looked at Count Ferenc. I have a kid, too. Kronos gritted his teeth. Did you come to save your kid? Yes, but you got caught by Alpharon. Kronos nodded heavily. He didn't know what to do now that he was stuck in an unexpected place. He was already on the cusp of finding stability after so much time spent roaming, but the world wouldn't leave him alone. Oh my, I see. Then I'll help you. Kronos was speechless. I have a child, too. But that damned bastard separated me from her. I can relate to what you're going through. Kronos nodded. He'd just met Count Ferenc, but a father's love was the same everywhere. He decided to accept the Count's help, even though he wasn't sure how useful the Count would be. And most importantly, it looks like you have some relation to the Black King. We're in the same boat, so I can't stand by and do nothing. Kronos was surprised again. Back when he was active, few had known about the Black King. If it hadn't been for Uranus's orders, Kronos wouldn't have known about him either. You know the Black King's darkness? Of course, I once sought it, but I couldn't attain it. Even though Count Ferenc was smiling bitterly, he looked at Kronos with eager eyes. It seems like you've managed to do it, however. Why can you use the energy of darkness so easily? What are you? An apostle. What? Ha, good joke. The Black King hasn't had an apostle since Kronos. You know me, I suppose my legends haven't been forgotten and are still being told. Count Ferentz's mouth dropped open and he was speechless for a moment. I mean, sir, you are Kronos. Kronos chuckled. Just use regular speech. It's awkward for me too if you suddenly speak differently. Right. Ahem. Anyway, you're quite lucky. Count Ferentz pounded his chest with his fist and spoke confidently. You're talking to the expert on the Black King. Kronos was flabbergasted that Count Ferentz would proclaim himself an expert on the Black King to him, the Black King's apostle, but he nodded in acknowledgement after speaking with Count Ferentz further. Although Kronos was the Black King's apostle, he hardly knew a thing about the Black King. All he knew was that the Black King was a being more ancient than Mother Earth, and the concepts of darkness, death, and dreams originated from him. However, since Count Ferentz had followed the Black King for a long time, he knew a lot more. When Kronos heard the Black King was the first universe of chaos and disorder, he laughed in surprise, but he didn't doubt the information. It made sense that the Black King was greater than he'd ever thought. Fortunately, it seems like your channel with the Black King hasn't been disconnected. Is that correct? Yes. It was all thanks to the springs, which connected him to the Black King. That means you can connect to your true body. Kronos' eyes widened. My true body is here. You didn't know. Oh, I suppose you wouldn't. I heard the Black King's apostle was paused in Tartarus before the tower was even built. Tartarus is located in the hidden stage of the 30th floor. Kronos clenched his fists. His true body. It was an unexpected ray of hope. Of course, Olympus might learn of his resurrection, but that wasn't important right now. I might be able to send Jungwoo back outside and find nectar or ambrosia. Kronos grew excited at the idea of being able to save Shinla as well. If you regain your original strength, what do you think the chances of victory are? Kronos' excitement died down as though someone had splashed cold water at his face. He calculated the chances objectively. 30%. I heard you were near the Emperor level. Isn't 30% too low? I actually rounded up. I've lost my holy power, divine positions, and faith. It's incredible that I still have any powers left. Kronos was relieved that he restored most of his strength during his many lives. Otherwise, he wouldn't be able to even reach 30%. But there's a way we can increase it to 40%. What is it? Kronos explained his plan calmly, and Count Ferentz laughed in shock, his eyes sparkling with amusement. I see it will be difficult to get out of here, but our actions will be a huge blow for Alpharon. They began to set their plan in motion. Kronos and Count Ferentz planned on using the resonance of souls and bodies. Kronos couldn't properly restore his strength while he was trapped in Alpharon's illusory world. He wasn't in a situation to look for his true body either. However, souls and bodies were drawn to each other, and if they could be connected for even a short while, Kronos would be able to restore his strength temporarily. Count Ferentz called the magic he invented the All. It will use the coordinates of a specific location and connect you there. I created it so I could meet my wife, who's hiding down there, but I'll use it for you. They only had one chance. Alpharon was skilled in magic and powers, so he would likely find countermeasures against the All even if he saw it only once. Thus, while the 77th floor and the 30th floor were temporarily connected through the All, Kronos had to regain his strength and defeat Alpharon. Bam! Count Ferentz used all his magic to connect to Tartarus with the All. A path has been created between the 77th floor and the 30th floor due to an unknown cause. Warning: this is not an approved path. You are forbidden to approach it. The system is working to shut down the path. Warning: this is not an approved path. The system may place checks on you if you move to the forbidden floor. Warning: this is not. Kronos inhaled the familiar air coming from the collapsed space of Tartarus. It was the place where he'd locked up his political enemies, and where he, in turn, had been locked up as well. The air smelled stale, but he was glad to feel it. Player, Vivasvat, is descending at the system's request. What are you doing? Quick! At Count Ferentz's shout, Kronos snapped to attention and released his strength to find his true body. Your true body is reacting to the request of your ego. A connection has been established between the true body and the ego. A temporary unification has been created. Your holy power is increasing. Your strength is increasing. The springs are rewinding. An independent god, Kronos, is manifesting. Kronos felt his conscious mind expand infinitely. The sensations he'd nearly forgotten were returning, along with other things he didn't want to remember. You've returned, another version of myself. Do you know how long I've waited? I'll swallow you this time. Letters flooded into his head like water. They tried to take over him, just as when he'd gone mad in the past. He could be lost in it again, but he tried to withstand it with superhuman endurance. I have to rescue Jung-woo. Just a little more and his plan would succeed. His desperate wish managed to hold off the demonism's invasion. Swoosh. In the meantime, Alphorn appeared with a flash of light. Open hollow corner bracket foolish. Alphorn reached out for Kronos, believing that Kronos was trying to take back his divinity. However, that was what Kronos and Count Ferenc wanted him to think. The 77th floor was Alphorn's illusory world, which meant it was Alphorn's holy territory. However, that also meant that it was vulnerable to corruption, and Kronos' consciousness could infect it. Kronos was confident he could succeed as long as he regained his strength. There was no way a child who had only been alive for thousands of years could handle the legends he'd built up through eons. He had once been the king of Olympus, with the other divine beings at his feet. He had been on the verge of becoming an emperor, and he was the only apostle of the mighty Black King. Alphorn and Kronos weren't even on the same level. As soon as their hands met, the white world was stained with darkness. Whoosh! Kronos could feel the two powers sleeping in the springs creak into position like cogs in a wheel. Time and death. He had lost death to Hades, but technically, it had been more of the authority to rule over the underworld than the actual concept of death. Thanks to that, Kronos was able to release death and cloud the illusory world. His plan was to pull Alphorn into death. The legends of the unaffiliated god, Kronos, stain the 77th floor. The Gate of Light, the holy territory of player, Vivasvat, is filling with Kronos legends. Legends are swirling around. Player Vivasvat lacks achievements. The domain of death has been activated by the legends. Player Vivasvat fiercely resists. Player Vivasvat's power, invincible, has been activated. The activation of death has been cancelled due to its incompatibility. Open hollow corner bracket foolish. Alphorn's voice was filled with fury. Most of Alphorn's skills had been paused after Kronos released his legends in the illusory world. At this rate, they would invade Alphorn's ego, and it would be difficult for him to move. This was the moment Kronos was hoping for. Now, the remaining energy of death has been transformed into a curse. An extreme curse has afflicted player Vivasvat. Unstable curse binding has been activated. Swish. Open hollow corner bracket hup. Alphorn's actions grew slower and slower. The domain of death flowed along darkness and tightly wound around him like chains. The concept of death was not particularly effective against Alphorn's nature, but now that Alphorn had been invaded by the legends and grown weaker, he was bound tightly. This was exactly what Kronos and Count Ferenc had been planning. It was the best way to buy them time. But we still don't have too much time. Do. Alphorn continued to release strength even though he was bound by darkness, and he summoned back the power he had previously expelled outside into illusory world. The chains began to unwind at a rapid pace. What an unbelievable strength. Kronos clicked his tongue. He couldn't even begin to imagine where such a powerful being had come from. He was tempted to pounce on Alphorn with an onslaught of attacks, but when he thought about the difference in their strengths, he knew that he didn't have a chance. As long as he was in the tower, there was no way he could defeat Alphorn. According to Count Ferenc, Alphorn was blocking all the transcendence on his own, which meant the guy had many hidden weapons. Eventually, Alphorn would loosen his chains and turn the situation around. However, that would take time, and perhaps it would be enough for Kronos to restore his strength and try something else. Kronos looked up and suddenly spread his arms wide. Open hollow corner bracket, what are you doing? Alphorn was flustered. He'd believed that Kronos was about to begin his attack. What else? Kronos just grinned, as if Alphorn was asking the obvious. I'm going to save my stupid son. At that moment, the domain of time activated. The darkness that stained the world of light expanded more ferociously. The air vibrated, and Kronos could feel himself connecting to the broad laws of the universe. It was a sensation he hadn't experienced in a while, and the feeling of transcending all universes and dimensions and looking at the world from above electrified his soul. At that moment, Kronos felt like he could become all-powerful and omniscient, something all divine beings desired. In the past, he had stopped time to end Olympus' civil war, using an ability numerous divine beings feared. I guess it's too much to spin the wheel of time and space. However, Kronos knew that his current strength wasn't enough. Things were too different from how they'd been in the past. Even though he was restoring his strength, it wasn't a fraction of what he used to have. If only he could wind back the time of the universe a little. He wasn't asking for much. All he wanted was a month, even days. He wanted to turn back time to the moment before Jungwoo entered the tower, but that seemed impossible. He'd only ever managed to spin the wheel twice when he was still in his prime, and it had only been possible because Olympus had used a significant number of laws of causality. Naturally, it wouldn't work now. For the first time, Kronos yearned for his old abilities, but he tried to use the wheel in another way to make himself nearly omniscient. If he perceived the past with the wheel, he would be able to see everything that was happening in the universe at that moment, and if he perceived the future, he would be able to see what would happen. Kronos would be able to do on his own what the three Norns of the 16th floor had to do together. Of course, he wouldn't actually be able to see the future. Everyone had different fates, and there were too many variables. Nothing was set in stone. The ability to observe the possibilities was something only an emperor who transcended space and time possessed, but at the moment, Kronos could approximate the ability. If he focused on a specific person or location, he would be able to limit variables as well. Kronos chose to look at Jungwoo and in particular, the future that was in front of Jungwoo. There's no way I can escape Alpharon's cage now. There's no way I can save Jungwoo myself, so I have to find a way to help him escape the tower somehow. That's all I can do. Kronos knew his limits, so he tried to look at the different futures that Jungwoo faced in the tower. He planned on looking for a good outcome and leading Jungwoo towards it. For a short while, countless futures flashed by Kronos' eyes. He saw over 10,000 possibilities. No, however, despair overwhelmed him as he looked at the different futures. Despite the astounding number, not a single one had a happy end for Jungwoo. Yeonwoo clenched his fists. Thump, thump, his heart was beating like crazy, and his blood was circulating quickly. He almost felt dizzy. The things he'd seen of Kronos' life so far were beyond shocking. All the things he'd believed were true had been crushed to pieces. His father had suffered for eons, and in the end, he had sacrificed himself for his wife and children. Ignorant of this fact, Yeonwoo had only been filled with resentment towards his father in the past, and now, he could no longer contain the emotions flowing out of his heart. Father. He wanted to say the word at the tip of his tongue again and again, but he couldn't. He wanted to run forward as he watched the vivid legends in front of him, and he was furious that he couldn't. When Kronos chased after Jungwoo and tried to turn the tables on Alpharon, Yeonwoo almost shouted, "No!" But the word didn't escape his mouth. It couldn't. The possible futures Kronos had seen were ones he had seen as well. They're like the ones I saw in the diary. Kronos was witnessing the countless futures that Jungwoo's vestige had to experience, the same experiences that had been recorded in the diary. He was watching the pain of Jungwoo's despair and anguish repeating over and over without any release. If these vivid scenes had broken Yeonwoo's heart, how would their father feel? Somehow I have to help father. Yeonwoo wanted help using any means possible. Even though this was only a memory and something that already happened, even if it was in vain, he wanted to help his father. He just wanted to help. That despairing expression wasn't right for the despicable father he remembered. His father had always been taciturn and brusque. Whoosh! Yeonwoo released his strength with all his might to synchronize once more. He didn't realize that he had already begun to think of Kronos as his father for some time now. However, no matter how much he moved in the world of Kronos' conscious mind, it was difficult to reconnect to the consciousness. Reconnection has failed. Reconnection has failed. Warning: your current synchronization level with Kronos is unnecessarily high. If you successfully reconnect, there is a high probability of being trapped in Kronos legends. Instead of reconnecting, find the springs to finish the quest. Warning: your current synchronization level is unnecessarily high. Forcing a reconnection may destroy the ego of your soul. The cold-blooded trait has failed due to an unknown reason. Damn it. Bam, bam. When the synchronization failed over and over, he tried to move his spirit body to break through the scenes of the legend playing out below him. However, nothing worked. Yeonwoo raised his head with a frustrated expression. He needed to find a way, but he was too enraged to think rationally. He couldn't help feeling annoyed since he couldn't find a solution. Just then, Yeonwoo felt something out of place squirming in the corner of his heart. He abruptly fell into calmness. The demonism. He was still combined with the demonism, and Kronos was as well. He had finally found a point of contact. He didn't know if it was just a coincidence the demonism happened to move now, or if the demonism was plotting something. The most important thing was that he'd found a way to synchronize once more. Yin Wu gathered all his consciousness and cast it into the demonism. Do. Suddenly, the world of his conscious mind began to quake. Very nice. Very letters from the demonism spun over Yin Wu's head. Reconnection has been successful, Yin Wu shouted as loud as he could, Father. Yin Wu, Kronos whipped around, thinking he'd heard his other son's voice. But of course, there was no way Yin Wu would be here since he was on Earth. Am I hallucinating? However, the voice was too real to be a mere hallucination. Maybe. Perhaps that was why Kronos stopped focusing on Jung Wu's future and changed gears. Although he couldn't name a reason, it seemed like he would be able to find a solution if he tried another direction. Kronos rapidly spun his domain of time and saw the futures that would occur after Jung Wu died, and he saw Yin Wu follow Jung Wu into the tower. He saw Yin Wu overcome many obstacles and reach his true body, and in the end, he watched Yin Wu return to Kronos and view his legends. I said not to come because it's dangerous. I suppose you truly are twins. Neither of you listen. Kronos sighed and turned around. No, the Yin Wu from the future was standing there. It's because I'm your son. Kronos scoffed and chuckled. Even in the future, Yin Wu was the same. Kronos was reminded of how he used to speak to his own father, Uranus. The apple didn't fall far from the tree. But, father, Kronos, scoffing turned into a deep smile. That's nice to hear. It came from Yin Wu, the son who avoided him and pretended like he didn't exist, no matter how Shenlao and Jung Wu tried to persuade him. But now, Yin Wu had called him, father. Kronos didn't know how long it had been since he last heard the word, probably not since Yin Wu was a baby. I suppose I really was an irresponsible father. That must have been why the world pulled at his heartstrings. He felt like he had finally been acknowledged by his son. He had become a proper father. Kronos was also proud of Yin Wu. When he'd seen into the future, he'd seen how difficult Yin Wu's life would become. But he avoided saying anything to encourage Yin Wu or motivate him to work harder. It would be too awkward. Yin Wu would probably curse him out if he did. Yin Wu was likely thinking the same thing because he awkwardly looked away, the smile on his face stiff. The two had become an ordinary father and son who couldn't speak from the heart because of awkwardness. What would his wife have said? Kronos smirked, and he realized what he needed to do. The world he was in might be legends that were already in the past, and the Yin Wu he was looking for was only one of the many future Yin Wus, but he knew one thing for sure, I have to look good in front of my son. He would be an impressive father. Whoosh, Yin Wu's image scattered in the breeze, but Kronos could feel Yin Wu's gaze on him. If Yin Wu is really there and that kind of future exists, this is what I have to do. Kronos put more strength into his domain of time to look deeper into the future where this Yin Wu was. The cogs in the springs grew overheated from use, and they were almost on the verge of being destroyed, but he paid no mind to them. It was possible he might meet his true death here, but the smile never left his face. At that moment, the paused time rewound. Whoosh, the sensation of transcendence that allowed him to see the future disappeared. Alphron had shaken off the chains and was regaining his powers. The darkness that stained the world of light was being split up by rays of light. The world was being purified. Boom, Kronos and Alphron collided as light and darkness battled for dominance. Of course, victory was on the side of light. The illusory world trembled. Darn, I was trying to be a proper father for once. You know about my situation, don't you? How come you can't give in just once? Kronos pushed against Alphron's attacks and pleaded for Alphron to yield. Open hollow corner bracket close hollow corner bracket. However, Alphron didn't respond. Although it was possible that Alphron was ignoring Kronos or scoffing at him, Kronos sensed a sadness in the light. Or did I commit a grave sin against you in the past? Open hollow corner bracket. I don't have any personal enmity with you. This is the first time we've met. Alphron's voice seemed despondent. Then, open hollow corner bracket. This is my duty. Open hollow corner bracket. It's more accurate to say it's a curse. Yin Wu didn't understand what Alphron was saying, but he became certain of one thing. Something was forcing Alphron, and he was deeply resentful of it. It was possible Alphron had once seen this as a sacred duty, but as time passed, it grew to feel like a curse. Alphron spoke again. Open hollow corner bracket. Anyway, whatever the reason, I cannot allow you or the other transcendents to enter the tower and ignore its laws. In fact, I do not understand why you want to cause chaos. I know you're in a pitiful situation, but as long as you disrupt order and fight destiny, I have to stop you. Kronos couldn't understand what Alpharon meant, but he could tell Alpharon saw transcendence like gods and demons in a negative light, believing that their actions challenge the order of the universe. Perhaps Alpharon was right. The movements of the divine beings sometimes shook the path of the universe. Even though they managed the laws of the universe, they tended to be selfish at crucial times. It was the result of having free will. But that's not my problem. Kronos didn't sympathize with Alpharon. People in his way could only be his enemies. Then what should I do? Kronos gritted his teeth. Alpharon had untied the chains faster than he'd expected. Even now, the light was tearing away the darkness in an attempt to bind his soul. The connection to his true body grew weaker. The pairing with your true body is growing faint. It is on the verge of disconnection. Warning, your divine strength is in danger. Warning, your divine strength is in danger. At this rate, Alpharon would seal him up even before he could do anything. He still had to ensure the correct future for Yi and Wu. It had to be a future that was certain to happen. Only then would there be a new ending that would deviate from Jung Woo's tragic ones. What did he need to do? Thankfully, he didn't need to think long to find the answer. A singularity. His plans began to form. If Yi and Wu becomes a singularity, I can leave the rest to him. Those who were designated as singularities would never change no matter how much the wheel of time and space spun or how many variables there were. It was fate. Kronos wanted to turn Yi and Wu into a singularity. It wasn't a guaranteed solution, but he wouldn't be able to see whether or not he succeeded because Alpharon was in the way. However, Kronos believed Yi and Wu could do it. Because he's my son. Resolve appeared in Kronos' eyes. It was time to designate a singularity. Kronos stopped fighting Alpharon and looked above, where his sick wife was waiting for her son and husband to return. Sorry, Rhea, looks like it'll be quite late this time as well. At that, Kronos forcefully grasped his fading divine strength and set it off. Boom, a large explosion boomed between them. Open hollow corner bracket, you're being foolish again. Alpharon used Shukuchi to put a gap in between them, and he managed to escape unscathed. Alpharon quickly extended a hand to prepare for an attack, but he was surprised when Kronos didn't fight. Instead, Kronos gathered what remained of his strength and holy power into his heart, then he used his hand to slice open his chest. Spurt, blood sprayed like a geyser from Kronos' body. It was thick and mixed with the holy power of darkness. Inside Kronos' heart was a shiny and round machine part with tiny cogs. A spring floated up into the air. At that moment, Alpharon realized that the peak of Kronos' achievements during his lifetime was the spring. It was a chess piece the Black King had left behind in a vessel for the domains of death and time. It also contained the legends that Kronos had built up through eons of life. Alpharon was bewitched by the spring, its mystique and beauty were beyond measure. Although Kronos had pulled out his own lifeline and revealed his weakness to his enemy, he was smiling, certain that it would save his sons. Crack, without any hesitation, he broke the spring in two. One half was time, and the other half was death. Kronos let go of the spring of time, and the darkness flowing under his feet rippled, swallowing the spring. Darkness was connected to emptiness, and emptiness transcended time and space. The spring of time would swim against the tide of the river and land in the moment Jungwoo entered the tower. It would be the special benefit. He can't recognize it's me, so I'll call it an invitation from the future. That sounds nice. If he couldn't change the past and prevent Jungwoo from entering the tower, he had to give Jungwoo a weapon that no one else had through a special benefit. Although Jungwoo wasn't in the best of health, his talent was something that even divine beings would desire, so the special benefit would become his wings. Some might say it was cheating and Kronos could only do it since he was connected to his true body. However, no matter how powerful Jungwoo became with the special benefit, he still wouldn't be able to avoid any of the sad futures. At that point, the spring of time would change again. Jungwoo, you're a smart boy. I believe you'll learn how to use the spring quickly. Kronos put his faith in the Jungwoo of the past or future, whichever one it would be. This time, he let go of the spring of death. Once again, the darkness swallowed the spring. It was headed for the future that would allow Yi and Wu to become a singularity. After arranging everything, Kronos could feel the holy power rapidly leaving his body. With the core that connected him to his true body gone, his divinity was deteriorating. The spring cannot be found. Your connection with your true body will be released. You have been given a penalty due to a countervailing force. Your divinity has been rapidly destroyed. Your holy power has been rapidly destroyed. Warning. The spring cannot be found. Find the spring and equip yourself with it. The destruction of your soul may lead to the extinction of your identity. Warning. The spring cannot be found. Warnings messaged frantically popped up. Whoosh. Kronos couldn't endure the countercurrent of holy power flowing to him, and his body began to fall apart bit by bit. Starting from his feet, he began to scatter into tiny letters. He had been able to reincarnate because of the spring, but now that he'd given it to his sons, he couldn't expect that anymore. True death was right in front of him, but Kronos looked relieved. He only felt sorry that this was the only thing he could do for his sons. I'll leave the rest to you, son, Kronos said to Yin-Wu, whose gaze was still on him, and he vanished in Alpharon's white light. Right before he disappeared, he smiled. Full playback has been completed. Kronos legends are finished. The synchronization is still in place because the quest has not been completed. As the messages popped up in his vision, Yin-Wu was frozen, unable to say anything. He wasn't angry, nor did he cry. He just felt blank. He couldn't forget how his father had smiled at the end. It felt as if his father were still smiling at him from beyond. Find the location of the springs. Yin-Wu lifted his head. The secret that had been revealed was profound, and he still needed to carry out his father's will. In fact, Yin-Wu already knew where each half of the spring was. It was impossible for him not to know. One is the pocket watch. Ding, you have found the spring of time. He had expected Jung-Woo's spring of time to be something like this. Their father's arrangements allowed Jung-Woo's talent to flourish with the special benefit, and later, it became an element of the diary. Just as their father hoped, Jung-Woo understood its use and moved the special benefit into the pocket watch. When it fell into Yin-Woo's hands, it became a cheat code that allowed him to be the Shadow King today, and it was also a vessel that held Jung-Woo's ego. Their father had arranged things so no matter what happened, the brothers would be able to reunite. The spring of death moved to the future, to the moment that Yin-Woo entered the tower. The other half of the spring. Just as the spring of time had appeared in another form to Jung-Woo, the spring of death took on a different form to Yin-Woo as well. Their father had placed his divine abilities and all the legends he'd built up on Earth through his multiple lives into the spring of death so that Yin-Woo would be able to grow rapidly and steadily, since the legends of past heroes would a great help to a player building up achievements. It would also become a weapon to protect his son. Vigrid. Whoosh, Yin-Woo muttered under his breath, and Vigrid appeared in front of him with a flash, as if glad to see him again. You have found the spring of death. You have successfully found all springs. You have completed the quest. You have made an achievement that is not easily accomplished. Additional karma will be provided. You have acquired 150,000 karma. You have acquired 200,000 additional karma. You have been rewarded. Messages continued to pop up in his vision, but Yin-Woo's gaze was fixed elsewhere. Vigrid was shaking as if it wanted Yin-Woo to quickly take hold of it. However, Yin-Woo couldn't bring himself to touch it. The cold-blooded trait has failed due to an unidentifiable reason. Warning, your mind is severely unstable. You are advised to quickly regain your composure. Warning, your mental resistance has been heavily weakened. You are advised to eliminate the cause and restore your trait. Yin-Woo felt as if Vigrid would disintegrate through his fingers if he tried to grab it. It was a baseless thought, but Yin-Woo's head was swarming with them. Father, you always protected me. Vigrid was a shadow of Kronos, the other half of the spring. It was a holy sword with the power of death containing the legends that he'd accumulated on Earth. The sword had fallen and been called a demonic sword. But after being passed down many hands, it finally reached Yin-Woo. Vigrid had become Yin-Woo's closest friend and always protected him as if it were trying to fulfill a goal. Although Yin-Woo hadn't noticed, Vigrid was like a father trying to protect his son. It was why Yin-Woo couldn't touch Vigrid. He felt as though his heart would be torn out of his chest. Vigrid continued to vibrate. The cold-blooded trait has failed due to unidentifiable reasons. The cold-blooded trait has failed due to unidentifiable reasons. I have to bring father back. Yin-Woo narrowed his eyes. The cold-blooded trait has been restored. He suppressed his shaking emotions. His head grew cool, and his trembling eyes became steady once more. He could finally see what he needed to do. No matter how many times he called for his father, Kronos wouldn't return. Yin-Woo needed to find a way to bring him back, no matter what it took. Fortunately, he could think of a method, unlike Jung-Woo's situation. If he fixed the springs in Vigrid and the pocket watch, Kronos would open his eyes once more. Most importantly, Kronos' true body was in the tower. If Yi and Wu could summon the legends he'd seen, it might be possible to resurrect Kronos. Yi and Wu believed in the power of the title, successor of the Black King. Just as he was about to touch Vigrid with a trembling hand, letters suddenly floated up and spun in the air. Very nice. Very. Yi and Wu felt like he could see the demonism smirking somewhere. As he instinctively withdrew his hand, Vigrid forced itself into Yi and Wu's grip. Swoosh. Ding. The continuation quest qualification test 2, repairing the springs, has been created. Scenario quest qualification test 2, repairing the springs. Description: you have successfully found Kronos' spring, which was buried under death. However, the spring you found has lost its function after being halved. Due to the absence of the spring, the other mechanisms are also broken, and it is unclear whether they will work again. The impurity of the spring is the greatest factor preventing Kronos from awakening. Repair the broken spring and fix the supporting mechanisms. Kronos will reward you according to your achievement level if you successfully wake him up. Qualifications: successor of the Black King. Time limit. Conditions for success: 1. Eliminate the impurity that prevents the spring from working properly and complete the repair process. 2. Fix the supporting mechanisms. Rewards: 1. Kronos, holy power. 2. Piece of clockwork. 3. The impurity mentioned in the quest window was most definitely the demonism. Shwoo. The energy of darkness bloomed above Vigrid and twisted to slowly take a humanoid form. At the same time, Yi and Wu's combination with the demonism was released. He could feel the demonism being sucked back into Vigrid. It felt like a part of his consciousness was being torn away from him. Open hollow corner bracket. You have no idea how long I've been waiting for this moment, for this day. Kikikik. The demonism soon became so large that he engulfed the entire world of Kronos' conscious mind, smiling evilly. As soon as Yi and Wu's eyes locked into the demonisms, he realized what he had been missing: synchronization. I wasn't the only one who synchronized with father, the demonism did, as well. Yi and Wu had managed to speak with his father for a short moment through the demonism, and that meant the demonism of the past and the demonism of the future were synchronized. The demonism, which had grown weak from its separation from Kronos, had now returned to his original condition. Moreover, this was the world of Kronos' conscious mind, which was the perfect place for the demonism. Was he aiming for this all along? Yi and Wu realized why the demonism had been so interested in Vigrid and asked for the egos of the divine beings. He needed to stabilize his fading identity, and he liked the heroic legends in Vigrid because they were Kronos. Open hollow corner bracket. Your father was reckless and foolishly left, but now he's in my hands again. Close hollow corner bracket. Madness flashed in the demonism's sharp eyes as he laughed coldly. Open hollow corner bracket. His children shall also become mine again. Something that appeared to be lightning crashed down from the sky. Boom. Sixth step. Dragon body awakening. All powers have been released. Sky wings. Yi and Wu quickly flapped his sky wings apart and escaped. Crash. The lightning bolts barely missed him, only it wasn't lightning. It was the demonism's hand. The giant demonism had tried to grab Yi and Wu. The world of Kronos' conscious mind split like curtains and the rest of the demonism appeared. Doo-doo-doo. It looked as if a giant mountain were moving or a tornado was surging toward Yi and Wu. The demonism's pressure bore down on Yi and Wu. As Yi and Wu observed the situation unfold, he became certain. The complete demonism was so strong that even the crawling chaos couldn't compare to him. He might even be on the same level as Kronos during his prime. Open hollow corner bracket. Shall we get started with round 2? The demonism sprang up, intending to swallow Yi and Wu in order to complete his body. What is going on? Athena looked fearfully at the shaking Kronos corpse. The others had the same expression as she did. This is insane. It's already been a while since he entered. What's taking so long? Hercules and Aria clenched their fists. Several hours had passed since Yi and Wu entered the corpse. There was no sign of him coming out anytime soon, and they grew more frustrated and anxious as time passed. Suddenly a destructive and turbulent earthquake shook the ground, and Kronos' corpse looked as though it would be destroyed. The sand and stones over Kronos' corpse poured to the ground, and black light beamed out of the cracks of the body. Steam floated up as liquid seeped out, as though Kronos' body were a volcano on the verge of eruption. Of course, even if the corpse shook like this, the gods wouldn't be injured if they flew up to the sky and cast a barrier around themselves. However, it was their first time to see anything like this, and they couldn't help feeling tense. Kronos' corpse had always been a controversial issue in Olympus. Although he had led Olympus to a golden age, they had been forced to imprison him after he became a lunatic tyrant. There was much debate about his body. They were certain he was dead, but they didn't know whether they should get rid of his body or just toss it into Tartarus and ignore it. However, their debate had ended as soon as Hades, the owner of Tartarus at the time, spoke up. How unpleasant. It was only a single sentence, but it was clear that no one would be able to step into his territory without his permission. At the time, no one could argue with Hades and Zeus, so they decided to respect Hades' opinion and leave Kronos' corpse in Tartarus. However, the stubborn Zeus was still furious at Kronos, so Hades and Zeus came to a compromise. If Kronos' corpse produced any strange phenomena, they would have to report it to Olympus right away. However, nothing strange had occurred until now. It was clear that Yi and Wu had done something inside, but the divine beings looking on were frustrated because they didn't know what he had done. Open hollow corner bracket, this won't do. I'll go in. Woof. Open hollow corner bracket, you'll only be a bother, fine. I'll take this guy with me. Agares and Fenrir became impatient. A strange madness was swirling in Agare's eyes as he looked at Kronos' body. Prince Nezha stepped up with a concerned expression. It'll be dangerous. You don't know what's in there, and our laws won't work there. Open hollow corner bracket HMPH. That only applies to the fearful and weak. Do you think any trap in there will affect me? Close hollow corner bracket. Woof, woof. Agares stuck his nose in the air and Fenrir barked in agreement, his tail wagging vigorously. Prince Nezha was about to speak when Athena stepped up with a determined face. No, I'll go. Agares stiffened. Open hollow corner bracket, what can you do? Even though he was brought down, Kronos was once a king of Olympus. Not an ordinary god but the king of gods. And you want to enter? You're not in the same society, and you're not even gods. Do you want to be swallowed by emptiness that badly? Agares and Fenrir's faces stiffened. Athena wasn't wrong. Anything could happen in the corpse, and there was nothing more foolish than a demon walking inside a place brimming with holy power. However, Agares and Fenrir weren't ordinary demons. Open hollow corner bracket, do you want to bet whether or not we'll be swallowed? Agares' frightening grin didn't belong on his cute childish face. He had just bared his teeth when suddenly, both Athena and Agares looked up. Fenrir's hair stood on edge as if he were meeting a mortal enemy. A god of less than Olympus greater than, Persephone, is descending. Rumble, boom, dark lighting crashed down between them. Athena quickly distanced herself from the intense heat. Persephone smiled at them from the spot where the lightning had struck. Persephone, goodness, so many familiar faces, and people I haven't even met yet. Persephone greeted Athena and Hercules in a good-natured manner even though they were glaring at her. Athena's stiff face tensed even more. If Persephone disrupted them while Yi and Wu was still in the body, things would become difficult. More importantly, her hands were supposed to be full with the war between the Titans and Gigantes. How did she manage to find the time to come here? Were the Gigantes attempting some kind of subterfuge? How? As if she could read Athena's mind, Persephone smiled brightly. Oh, are you wondering why I managed to come here? That's simple. Persephone tossed something down onto the ground. Roll. The rebellion is over. It was Thea's decapitated head. Athena and the others stiffened. The rebellion was over. Already. The fact that the battle ended with the Gigantes' victory meant they had been expecting this. Even though the Titans had the element of surprise on their side, it wasn't easy to defeat the Gigantes, who had Mother Earth. They had probably prepared countermeasures for her, whether it meant waking Kronos or using other skilled beings like him. The battle between the Titans and Gigantes was bound to be long and rough, so Athena and the others had planned on using that time on things like learning how to take holy power from Kronos' corpse or searching for the path to Erebus. Things were different if the rebellion was already over. Athena and the others would have thought that Persephone was bluffing if she had arrived alone, but since she had Thea's head, they had no choice but to believe her. However, unlike the others, Athena smirked. You're lying. Everyone looked at her. Persephone asked with a dazzling smile, what do you mean? The rebellion is over. That's a lie. What? I don't know how you did it, but you captured Thea through sheer luck. You haven't caught the other Titans yet. In fact, they're probably stronger than you expected, and now that strange phenomena are occurring around Kronos, you're starting to feel anxious. Persephone was still smiling at Athena, so it was impossible to know what she was thinking. However, Athena knew that Persephone made this face whenever she was caught and wanted to hide the truth. Your original plan was to look for us after crushing the rebellion, but you've had to rush in advance, right? What if I came here first and left the others to clean up? You, Athena scoffed. You always put your safety first. You never move until all the pieces are arranged the way you like. You just slowly move your pawns from behind. You never put yourself forward, just like you took over Tartarus using Mother Earth's strength. That's how you brought down Olympus as well. You've been like this for a long time. Athena added, your habit of moving until victory is guaranteed hasn't changed. You're contradicting yourself. If I always put safety first, there's no reason why I'd come here alone. Mother Earth must have forced you since she's been obsessed with Kronos forever. Persephone was silent. Dogs have to listen to commands, don't they? Athena's words were sharp as knives. Tension sparked between the two goddesses. There was an old saying that men should never get in between a catfight between women. Agares and Fenrir realized that this wasn't the time to do anything, so they tightly closed their mouths. Prince Nezha and Erlang also stepped back with awkward laughter. Hercules and Ares watched wordlessly, then glanced at each other. They quickly exchanged messages. Open hollow corner bracket. Has Athena always been so harsh? She's pretty much clutching Persephone by the hair. Open hollow corner bracket. There's nothing more foolish than trying to defeat Athena in a fight of words. She's a genius at infuriating people and hurting them with what she says. Ares snorted. Open hollow corner bracket. And that's not all. She's ridiculously strong. If she loses an argument, she'll beat you up after getting on your nerves. Ah, Ares shivered, as if he didn't even want to think about it. Hercules grinned. Open hollow corner bracket. You're speaking from experience. Open hollow corner bracket. I'm not the only one. Open hollow corner bracket. Well, I guess Uncle Poseidon is also a victim. Open hollow corner bracket. It's probably easier to count those in Olympus who haven't suffered at her hands. Hermes is amazing. Beats me how he's managed to get along with her for so long. Back in Olympus, Athena and Ares were the ones who clashed the most often, and it was natural that Ares would know his sister best. Eloquence, wisdom, martial arts skills, she had them all. Because she was intelligent, good at arguing, and strong, there was no way to win against her. In fact, Ares always picked a fight with her partly because of his inferiority complex around her. Athena would ignore his frustration, only to beat him up whenever he exploded. But now, it was Persephone who was in Athena's grip. Athena was already mad at Persephone because of all the suffering she'd caused. Now, with Persephone's provocations, Athena had exploded. She was already feeling anxious over Wu, and although she usually tried to keep her temper under control, Athena didn't have the patience to do so now. The smile on Persephone's face completely vanished. I'm an idiot for trying to argue with you. I forgot what you were like for a moment. Persephone gave up speaking in a polite manner and smiled coldly. You're right, I caught Thea, but her daughters are still free, so it's not over. All the Hectonshires have escaped, too. To be honest, this is all just annoying. CHH. A mighty aura began to spin around Persephone. The ground around her feet turned black with a dark shadow, and hundreds of eyes opened within it. But if you're smart, you must realize that if I'm here on my own, Persephone lifted a corner of her mouth. It means that I can take care of all of you. Isn't that so? Her words were like a lit match to fuel. Crash, crash. A gigantic, formless blob suddenly rose from Persephone's shadow and instantly lashed out at Athena and the others with hundreds of thorns. Boom, boom. Ares quickly brandished his sword. The shadow thorns soared past him. Hercules swung his fists and broke the thorns with his strength alone, while Prince Nezha and Erlang released their powers to sever the thorns. However, someone grew especially furious. Open hollow corner bracket. You dare. Agares was enraged that Persephone had said she could defeat them on her own, even him, the Grand Duke of the Demons. His pride was already hurt from being just another member of a group helping Wu, and he couldn't contain his anger now that he was being treated like a nobody. With a roar, Agares jumped down from Fenrir and returned to his true body. Dozens of wings stretched out to the sky, and a storm of demonic energy swirled around him. Agares not only used the demonic energy to cut down the thorns, but he combined them into one giant thorn and sent it crashing down on Persephone's head. Boom, boom. Mother Earth's energy whipped around Persephone and created a protective barrier. The demonic energy broke through 7 layers of the barrier, but it eventually scattered before it could fully pierce through it. In the meantime, Fenrir also manifested into his true body and bared his sharp teeth. Boom. While Agares held Persephone's attention, Fenrir attacked her from behind. It was a strategy the two demons had decided on with a single shared look. By the time Persephone sensed Fenrir, it was too late. Crash. With the sound of cracking glass, Fenrir broke through the barrier and his fangs tore Persephone's left arm mercilessly. Although it was clearly painful, Persephone didn't seem shaken as she turned to Fenrir. Hup. Then, white eyes opened on the falling pieces of the barrier, and the pieces splashed into each other like water, causing a massive tornado. Swish. It was a tornado with hundreds of razor-sharp blades. Fenrir had no choice but to face the tornado directly. By the time it swept by, he was riddled with bloody injuries, as if he'd been hacked repeatedly with knives. Grr, RRR. Fenrir panted for breath. He'd lost too much blood and demonic energy. Swish, thwack. Before anyone could move, Fenrir was impaled on new shadow thorns. It was an unbelievable, one-sided victory for Persephone. Open hollow corner bracket dog. Agaris called out in disbelief as he ran towards Fenrir, but he was stopped in his tracks. CHH. The powerless Fenrir scattered into pieces that were sucked into Persephone's shadow. It was a technique only those who had pieces of the Ruyi Bang could use. Persephone was using a skill that the heavenly demon and his many faces had developed to infuriate countless gods and demons, God sealing. Crash. Yin Wu released magic power to push away the demonism's mouth and used the 8 extremes of sword thunder to bring bolts down onto the creature's head. Boom, 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 craw. Although he couldn't muster up as much force as when they were combined, Yin Wu had already collected a significant amount of magic power inside the Philosopher's Stone. Especially considering the fact that he had recently swallowed the crawling chaos and typhon, it was no exaggeration to say Yin Wu was unparalleled in the heavenly world when it came to magic power. Fortunately, the 8 extremes of sword thunder was a skill that depended on the amount of magic power you possessed, and the 5th extreme, which was 32 times stronger than the original sword thunder, was a violent weapon. Boom. Open hollow corner bracket ack. You bastard, I will eat you no matter what. The demonism was forced to withdraw his head from the attacks of the sword thunder's 5th extreme. After realizing that his large size was only getting in the way, he quickly shrank down into the size of a human. At the same time, wings extended from his back as he dashed towards Yin Wu. Soon, he was holding the same exact sword Yin Wu possessed. Sky wings and Vigrid. Yin Wu clashed against the 2 things that represented him the most. Crash. You damned fake. Open hollow corner bracket. You're the one who taught me the most important thing is victory. The darkness of the demonism's face pulled back to show Yin Wu's face. The demonism was familiar with Yin Wu's attack style after combining with him. He could even copy Yin Wu's way of thinking, and he used the egos of the divine beings to make up for what he lacked. The demonism was trying to become Yin Wu and the real successor of the Black King that had swallowed Yin Wu and Kronos. KRRRRR. Yin Wu pushed the demonism back with the vibrating Vigrid. Sword thunder sparked around them and ripped the world of Kronos' conscious mind into shreds. Time difference. Yin Wu tried to search for a way to defeat the demonism in his slowed world. The quest told him to eliminate the impurity, which meant he needed to end the demonism. But as long as the demonism is invading Father's conscious mind, there's no way I can defeat him completely. I'll be at a disadvantage if this fight goes on much longer. The fact that the demonism was coming for him meant he was confident. He was stronger than anything Yin Wu had fought before, and he'd digested all the legends to grow even stronger. However, the fact that he knew Yin Wu's weaknesses and could predict his moves was more worrisome. Swoosh. Even though Yin Wu had slowed time down, the demonism moved. Open hollow corner bracket. Did you think these tricks would work on me? The demonism used time difference to match Yin Wu's speed and attacked him, not giving him a chance of coming up with a way to fight back. Rumble. As the two clashed intensely, the world of Kronos' conscious mind shook turbulently. What's something he can't imitate? Yin Wu was quickly running through ideas while deflecting the demonism's attacks. He quickly focused his eyes on the demonism and made a few comparisons. It didn't take too long for him to come up with an answer: the cast of the Black King. Clatter. Black chains unraveled rapidly past the demonism's lower body. However, the demonism just scoffed and flew into the air as if he had been expecting them. However, Yin Wu had guessed he would do this. Unless the demonism was a fool, he would have prepared countermeasures against the Black King's cast, since he had been trapped for so long in the Black King. He probably knew more about the cast than Yin Wu did. However, there was something he didn't know. Even if he did know, he would have never expected Yin Wu to try it. Release the true name. Tremble. Vigrid fastened onto the end of the chain with a flash of white light. Click. The demonism smirked from above. Yin Wu wasn't doing anything new. Open hollow corner bracket ha. All you can think of is using Vigrid. Kikikik. How foolish. It's not foolish. It'll be quite fun. You'll see something familiar. If Yi and Wu pulled out the weapons of heroes like Durandal or Harp, the demonism might be able to withstand them since there were limits to heroes who didn't become gods. However, Yi and Wu wasn't trying to release their folklore. He was trying to release legends of a being who had once been called the King of Gods. The hidden name of Vigrid, Kronos, is released. Folklore. Descent of the King of Gods. Whoosh. An extraordinary aura began to whirl in the world of the conscious mind. Summon of the dead has been activated. Who will you summon? Kronos. With that quiet command, the domain of death, a small spring that had been sleeping inside Vigrid, began to spin again for the first time in thousands of years. Open hollow corner bracket impossible. The demonism's eyes trembled at the intense aura and strength that shook the world. He had abandoned Vigrid because he thought he had already swallowed all the legends of the heroes inside Vigrid. He never imagined Yi and Wu would connect it to the cast of the Black King and release its power. He was annoyed because it was a method he hadn't even thought of. If Kronos really descended, things would become dangerous. Even though the demonism had invaded Kronos' true body, if the real Kronos ego appeared, he could take his body back. The demonism quickly dashed towards Yi and Wu in an attempt to stop him, but Vigrid exuded a heat so powerful that the demonism couldn't even maintain his balance. Crash. In the meantime, Yi and Wu looked at the messages popping up above the trembling Vigrid. The summoning has failed. The messages all said he had failed to summon Kronos. Had his father's soul also gone to darkness like Jung Wu's? Was that why he couldn't respond? Then, another round of messages appeared. Vigrid has not been completely purified. The spring inside is broken. It cannot summon the one you wish to see. Current progress of purification, 99.5%. Searching for ways to complete the remaining 0.5%. Options for repairing and restoring the spring are being reviewed. The spring can be repaired. The functions of the spring can be repaired. Searching for methods of repairing. It has been confirmed the qualities of the spring are similar to those of death. The option of connecting the left wing death of the power, sky wings, is being reviewed. It is possible. Vigrid's spring has been connected with the left wing of sky wings. The domain of death has been connected for automatic restoration. Expected restoration time, 12 minutes 41 seconds. Fortunately, Kronos' soul hadn't fully moved into darkness yet, and a part of him was still left inside the spring. At the moment, the pocket watch was with Ananta, so it was possible that even if Kronos were summoned, he would only have half his original strength. Regardless, Yi and Wu still felt reassured. After all, they were inside the world of his father's conscious mind, as well as inside his true body. If he could successfully summon his father here, it wouldn't be difficult to defeat the demonism together. The only problem was time. Yi and Wu had 12 minutes to go before Kronos appeared, and he would have to fight the demonism and prevent Vigrid from being broken. That's a bit tough. Yi and Wu gulped and gripped Vigrid's hilt. Time could pass quickly or seem to move at a snail's pace in a situation like this. Under normal circumstances, Yi and Wu would have been confident he could endure for that amount of time. In fact, he might even be victorious against the demonism. But now, the demonism was quickly taking over Kronos' true body after they synchronized. It was difficult to say whether the demonism would snatch the legends from Kronos' body faster than the spring could be restored. Suddenly, the demonism frowned at Yi and Wu and blasted out the legends he had absorbed. Open hollow corner bracket, you're a nuisance until the end. Darkness danced around him and his body split into 3. CHH. Open hollow corner bracket then. Open hollow corner bracket then. Open hollow corner bracket then. The 3 demonisms spoke at the same time. Open hollow corner bracket, I'll have to use some tricks. Open hollow corner bracket, I'll have to use some tricks. Open hollow corner bracket, I'll have to use some tricks. Whoosh. The 3 demonisms moved towards different directions and tried to climb the intense storm of aura. Then, 3 became 5, 5 became 8, and in the end, there were 10 of them exploding sword thunder at the same time. Boom. Rumble. Something flashed among the demonisms, and the storm of aura began to rip itself apart. Just as the world of Kronos' conscious mind was shaken to a dangerous level, one demonism appeared through the black fog and swung his sword. Clang. Cashing. As Yi and Wu stood his ground and deflected the attack with Vigrid, other demonisms appeared and attacked from all directions. You're like an amoeba with all this division. You bastard. Yi and Wu was flabbergasted at the onslaught of attacks from the demonisms. Even though they were in a world of a conscious mind that the demonism had invaded, which meant that anything was possible, it was too much. It meant that not only was the demonism invading Kronos' true body at a rapid rate but also that the holy power and legends of the true body were incredibly powerful. Swish! Yi and Wu plunged, barely escaping the attacks. However, two demonisms were waiting for him below, their swords raised high and black aura lingering at their sword tips. Two bolts of sword thunder crossed each other. Thinking there was no way to avoid this attack, Yi and Wu raised two bolts of sword thunder with all his might and exploded them. Rumble! Boom! The streaks of sword thunder Vigrid released split through the air, and Yi and Wu quickly activated Blink to attack the two demonisms from behind. The demonisms turned around too late. Vigrid was already releasing a third sword thunder. It was the third extreme, which was 8 times the original power. Durandal, caching. Vigrid easily slashed through a demonism. Darkness spurted from a line that appeared from the demonism's crotch to his forehead and he was destroyed. It was Durandal's folklore, cutting in two with one strike of the sword. The restoration of the spring is in progress. Purification is in progress. Only 75.4% left until the true name, Kronos, will be released. The release of other true names will be possible. The release of the true name, Kronos, was different from releasing the other true names. The other true names only activated folklores, but the true name, Kronos, would release legends, which were a combination of multiple folklores. Vigrid would return to its original appearance. And in that process, Yi and Wu would be able to use all the other folklores freely. Open hollow corner bracket up. The remaining demonism quickly flapped his sky wings to get away, realizing that the blade's strike would be fatal. However, Yi and Wu had anticipated this reaction, and he let go of Vigrid, pulling the chains to himself instead. The black chains whizzed through pockets of emptiness and wrapped around the demonism's right foot. Harp. Vigrid, which had transformed into a scythe, instantly ripped through the demonism's wings and neck. Open hollow corner bracket ack. Yi and Wu pulled Vigrid back as he looked down at the dead demonism who had been slashed into 5 pieces. He had eliminated 2, but there were still many left. Open hollow corner bracket how strong? Very. Open hollow corner bracket I've become more certain. Open hollow corner bracket I can't leave him be anymore. If he grows any stronger close hollow corner bracket. Open hollow corner bracket I'll get sick. Open hollow corner bracket he's at the perfect moment of ripeness for eating. When the black fog cleared, and Yi and Wu looked up, he discovered a throng of demonisms filling up the world of Kronos' conscious mind. The demonism had divided so many times that Yi and Wu didn't know where to start counting. 0 hours 9 minutes and 12 seconds. 0 hours 9 minutes and 11 seconds. At this point, only 3 minutes passed, and yet the demonisms had multiplied to such a huge number. He still had a long time to go, but Yi and Wu extended sky wings and tightened his grip on the chains and Vigrid. It's not over until it's over. The demonism was getting stronger as he swallowed Kronos' legends, but that meant Yi and Wu would also be able to use Kronos' holy power through Vigrid. Excalibur. Another round of heat and wind burst out. Guy Bulg. Vigrid tore through several demonisms at the speed of light. Urondite. The light left in Vigrid's trail blazed with black fire and turned the other demonisms into ash. Clatter. The faster Yi and Wu swung Vigrid and the chains, the greater the scale of the battle grew. Ascalon, Amaz, Zan Yuan sword, Biden true names Yi and Wu had never been able to uncover until this point continued to appear and add to the folklore. The restoration of the spring began to speed up. Most importantly, Yi and Wu could feel himself synchronizing with Vigrid. The spring of death was connected to his left wing, and although the cogs inside the spring were tiny, he could feel them moving and helping him with a new synchronization. During this process, Yi and Wu managed to learn the many folklores and legends Kronos had built up through his many lives. He successfully gained all the experiences of his father on Earth, and his control of Vigrid improved. He could defeat the demonisms much faster as more of Vigrid's abilities were revealed. Yi and Wu was enlightened multiple times as he forced the demonisms into defeat. Crash! The demonisms were swept away with a single strike of the blade. Open hollow corner bracket how? Open hollow corner bracket just why? Why? Open hollow corner bracket why can't I defeat you? The demonisms became more anxious. Their ego was becoming more complete as they took over Kronos' true body, but it wasn't getting any easier to defeat Yi and Wu. Vigrid seemed to grow even stronger, making them feel nervous. Eventually, the demonisms felt too threatened and they dashed to Yi and Wu without thinking of the consequences. Hundreds of demonisms died, but it didn't matter. Open hollow corner bracket I have no choice. Open hollow corner bracket but to take you by force. The demonism was going to use brute strength to swallow Yi and Wu. Pow, pow, no matter how many times Yi and Wu slashed at the demonisms, he would reach his limit. A few demonisms cleared through the explosions and successfully attacked Yi and Wu's hands and feet. Sword thunder sparked endlessly as the demonisms tore off Yi and Wu's arms and legs, which healed with regeneration over and over. 0 hours 0 minutes and 2 seconds. 0 hours 0 minutes and 1 second. 0 hours 0 minutes and 0 seconds. The spring has been repaired. The restoration is successful. The purification is complete. The release of true names is beginning. Crash. All of the power released into the world of Kronos' conscious mind combined into darkness, spinning inside Vigrid at an intense speed. Open hollow corner bracket this can't be. Open hollow corner bracket and no. Too bad for you guys. Yi and Wu smiled twistedly at the demonism surrounding him. My father's kinda strong. Summon of the dead is beginning. Spark. Black sparks shot above Vigrid, and cracks began to appear on its blade. An unaffiliated god, Kronos, is descending. Boom. Vigrid detonated with a powerful force. However, its pieces didn't scatter in different directions. Instead, they climbed to the swirling darkness above and began to take on a new form. Click, click. The pieces combined not into the shape of a sword but of a person. It was someone whose face was familiar to Yi and Wu. Although the face was more wrinkled than Yi and Wu remembered, it was not one he could forget. When the being opened his eyes, the first thing he saw was Yi and Wu. Father, Yi and Wu said. Those things hurt me, teach them a lesson. Although his expression and words were like those of a kid who was telling on someone who had roughed him up, Yi and Wu's tone and cadence sounded mechanical, like he was reading from a textbook. However, this was something Kronos enjoyed. Oh my, you're not injured anywhere, are you? You're still too weak. Kronos played along. It was the kind of conversation he'd always hoped to have with his sons after his wife's illness was cured. However, Kronos' use of the word, weak, provoked Yi and Wu and made his eyes twitch. Weak you say? I must have hit a sore spot. But, am I wrong? It's stupid to get beaten up by these guys. I didn't raise you like that, son. I don't believe you raised me in the first place. Since we're married, whomever Rhea raised, I also raised. A thought crossed Yi and Wu's mind to just cancel the summon of the dead. He hadn't expected his reunion with his father would be like this. He'd been hoping that they would defeat the demonism together and then catch up. However, Yi and Wu was only receiving bruises and cuts. Kronos burst into a large smile as if he found it cute to see his son holding down the anger that constantly reared its head. Yi and Wu frowned. What's so funny? Well, everything is. Kronos, who had always seen Yi and Wu with a serious and unsatisfied expression, couldn't help smiling. He was having a lot of fun. Yi and Wu became even more annoyed by that look. That damn father, it seemed that he and his father were just not compatible. They would probably clash often since they had such different thoughts and expectations. Anyway, after laughing for a while, Kronos wiped the tears from his eyes with his index finger and smiled. His eyes now reflected a sense of pride. The pride of a father who could see how well his son had grown. It is very nice to meet you like this, son. Yeah, I'm pretty happy as well. Although, I didn't know that my own father would appear this way. Yi and Wu continued sulking as he squinted and glanced at Kronos, who was smiling and looking at him with a kindly expression. Smile. Yi and Wu didn't even realize that a faint smile had appeared on his lips. That's right, I thought we would meet again on Earth. I never thought it would be in a place like this. Let's see, how many years has it been? It hasn't been that long ago for me. That's right, it wouldn't have been very long according to how much time has passed for you. To be honest, I don't have many memories. Kronos smiled as his words trailed off. Yi and Wu looked at his father and realized that Kronos was looking at him yet focusing on something else. He could easily guess what it was. Even though Kronos had closed his eyes after dividing the spring, Vigrid was like his alter ego. It was likely that Yi and Wu's accumulated experiences were inside Vigrid, and now that Kronos had regained his ego, he was probably reflecting on Yi and Wu's past experiences. Yi and Wu felt strange about it. What did his father, who had stayed by his side and supported his efforts, think of him? He probably saw Yi and Wu as a child playing with danger as if it were fire. Children always stayed young to their parents. Yi and Wu's chest tightened with a not entirely unfamiliar feeling. He didn't want to let it go. As Yi and Wu and Kronos enjoyed their reunion, the demonisms ground their teeth at being ignored. Open hollow corner bracket while I'm standing here. Open hollow corner bracket, are they fooling around? Open hollow corner bracket, father and son, they're both despicable. They had been taken aback when Kronos unexpectedly manifested, but they quickly understood the situation and began talking once more. Oh, are you all still here? From the start, you guys have been able to read the room. HMPH. Kronos looked displeasingly at the guys who ruined the good time he was having with his son. Well, even if he's such a weak son, he said you hit him. As his father, I can't just let this happen without doing something. Kronos twisted a corner of his mouth. Whoosh. The world of Kronos' conscious mind shook again, this time due to another reason. Yi and Wu had felt intimidated when demonism shook the conscious mind, but when his father did it, it simply felt comfortable, as though he were in a warm embrace. On the other hand, the demonisms grew astonished and their expressions stiffened now that their plan to take over Kronos' corpse had been interrupted when Kronos regained his ego. Kronos' true body was responding to Kronos now. SS's Kronos. Darkness appeared and began to push away the demonism's darkness, which had just seemed to be on the cusp of taking over the world of conscious mind. If the demonism's darkness was cloudy and sticky like a swamp, Kronos' darkness was like the night sky. Though it was the same darkness, the sensations were completely different. After a long period of time, the spring had been rewound. Although the spring was only half its original size, it had been enough to awaken Kronos' true body out of its deep sleep. However, due to the incomplete clockwork, Kronos didn't have complete control over his body. The demonism had also been a part of Kronos' consciousness, and so it still had command over Kronos' true body. It was difficult for Kronos to completely take over his own body with only half of a spring. However, Kronos thought that this level was sufficient. No matter how much demonism struggled to become the owner of his true body, what could he do with the real owner present? How dare a mere portion of the Black King's darkness, no better than a servant, covet the king's possessions? You don't know how serious of an offense this is, do you? Kronos said arrogantly as he released his destructive powers. It seemed that Kronos had returned to the time when he'd been young and known as an unpredictable scoundrel. His eyes, which reflected his determination to stomp on lesser beings, pierced through the crowd of demonisms. The faces of the demonisms all turned red and green when they heard the word, servant. When they thought of how Kronos had treated them in the past, they could not help getting angry. Kronos was implying that they were little more than tools. The demonisms were about to protest when Kronos suddenly wrapped the darkness around his hand. Open hollow corner bracket, what? Too noisy. That's why. Whoosh. Let's close those snouts a little bit. He chopped the air with the blade of his hand, drawing a long line in the space that the demonisms occupied. Boom, boom. Soon, an enormous chain of explosions blasted out like falling dominoes. All the demonisms near the line burst. The demonisms screamed. Those whose limbs had been severed and even those with very small scratches watched as their injuries exploded in a blast that devoured them. It was death at work. As he violently wound the spring of death, Kronos gained holy power and forced it into the demonisms. He had spread his divine domain like poison and forced the demonisms into it. Is it possible to use one's divine domain in that way? That doesn't even seem like the limit in the power and use of a divine domain. Yi and Wu's eyes widened as he watched Kronos fight. Although Yi and Wu had seen other gods use the same weapons, Kronos' way of using them was different. The gods normally used their skills and divine powers to overwhelm their opponents and crush them with the power that originated from their domains. However, Kronos was using the divine domain itself as a weapon. There was a high risk that the divine domain might be damaged, but Kronos expanded his divine domain and used it to swallow his enemies without any concern. Kronos himself was like a sword. Vigrid, the secondary name for the sword, meant battlefield. It seemed more like its true name at this moment. He's pushing all the demonisms into the concept of death itself. His father had only recovered part of his powers, but he was still an immensely strong being. Yi and Wu could not help exclaiming in admiration as he watched Kronos fight. He felt as though he were gaining a new understanding once more. His father's level of progress was also very different from that of his master. Yi and Wu's master had reached the heights of a martial artist, but his father was teaching him what a true divine being was. Yi and Wu felt like he was being presented with a new path to develop the legends of death and fight he had been building up. Kronos was thrilled to see his son's admiring gaze, so he grinned and started swinging his hands more quickly and indiscriminately. Boom, 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 boom. The demonism's severed necks and limbs flew in the air as explosions blasted over and over. Open hollow corner bracket, how dare, how dare. The demonisms realized that they could not let things continue in this manner, so they gathered the remaining darkness and combined to create a colossal figure whose body was large enough to cover the entire world of Kronos' conscious mind. It was so large that one would think that the true body of Kronos had appeared. Its aura alone had a tremendously destructive amount of power. As the figure slammed its hand down, a gust of wind and calamities like fire arrows and icy hail fell violently. Perhaps because he didn't want to underestimate this new attack, Kronos gathered the darkness in his palm and shot it out. Soon, dense barriers appeared one after another, repelling all the disasters. Bam! At the same time, Kronos opened space and quickly moved, appearing on the left side of the figure. He stretched out his hand and murmured, "Scythe." Rip! A gigantic scythe appeared in his hand. It resembled Vigrid's variant, harp, but was much larger in size. When Kronos had the God of Kings, he had formed this beloved weapon from the crystals he collected from Mother Earth's belly button, which was known as the Fountain of Revenge, after her fall. This weapon, which had terrified many and represented the King of Olympus, appeared in the world once more. Of course, the real scythe had been destroyed by Zeus after he usurped the throne, but since this was the world of Kronos' conscious mind, it was possible to materialize anything he wanted. It's been a long time. Zing! Scythe shook violently as if responding to Kronos' words. A smile formed on Kronos' face. How he missed this feeling. Scythe was the prototype that Vigrid was based on. However, this scythe was lacking in many ways compared to the real scythe. The real scythe had been made exclusively for Kronos, and it could increase the powers of his divine domains of time and death to their highest levels. All living beings, mortals and transcendents, had their own time. Scythe was designed to cut that time and led them to death right away. It was a cheat code. Open hollow corner bracket YU. The demonism recognized Scythe and tried to shout something. What? I can't understand what you're gibbering about. Is it because you're a loser who couldn't even become a god? Kronos sneered and slammed Scythe down. Boom. Open hollow corner bracket arg. Scythe mercilessly passed through the figure's left arm, and murky darkness spewed out like blood from the wound. Boom. The figure fell to the ground, screaming. As it wobbled around, the world of conscious mind shook. The demonism did not even blink an eye at pain, but Scythe's strike was too painful. When demonism tried to restore his left arm, the darkness could not even flow near the wound. The remnants of death that Scythe left behind did not permit recovery. Yi and Wu could not hide his surprise. Well, I guess I couldn't finish him off in one go. Kronos looked dissatisfied even after his monstrous attack, clucking his tongue. If he were in his prime, he would have beheaded the demonism in one go. His relatively weaker strike was due to the missing divine domain of time in his spring. Well, it doesn't matter anyway, right? If I cut it apart until it dies, that's good enough. Kronos laughed coldly and jumped off the shoulder of the demonism. His body seemed to blur and he became gusts of black wind that slashed around the demonism. Less than unrivaled disorder greater than. Kronos had developed this power through his countless lives as a hero. Whoosh, boom, 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 arg. The demonism looked up and screamed over and over in pain as the gusts of black wind ravaged his body, evidence of Kronos' valor. Open hollow corner bracket how? How the hell? The demonism could not understand what was going on. He had once been part of Kronos, and he had had a significant influence on the legends that Kronos had built up as a king of gods. Thus, demonism tried to control Kronos' true body through synchronization and gathered many legends to use against Yi and Wu. With a little more time, the demonism felt that he could become a supreme being. It had been more than 10,000 years since Kronos had been separated from his true body, and he only had his vestige body and soul now, as well as half a spring. Even if Kronos could recover a considerable amount of his power by drawing it out of his true body, it was impossible for him to restore the valor he had possessed as the king of gods. And yet, Kronos was pushing the demonism around, as if his missing divine domain were nothing more than an inconvenience. His fall from grace in the past seemed just that, something in the past. For a moment, the demonism wondered if he was facing a different being, but he couldn't deny that the actions and speech of the being attacking him were those of the old Kronos. And yet, there was also something about him that the demonism didn't know. Kronos had changed too much in the years they were apart. Whoosh, bam, a deep wound appeared on the right side of the demonism's body, and the darkness continued to leak out. Open hollow corner bracket you. What the hell are you? Are you curious? You don't know what the hell is happening, do you? It seemed as though Kronos had read the demonism's thoughts and appeared next to the demonism's ear with a cold smile. Kronos' voice was so cold that the demonism instinctively straightened his back. You probably can't even venture a guess. Whoosh! Kronos swung scythe diagonally, aiming for the demonism's head. The demonism instinctively tried to pull his head and neck back, but he could not dodge all of Kronos' offensive attacks. Kronos cut off the top of his head at an angle. A cry of pain rang out once more. Do you know how long I've been preparing for this? Whirl! Kronos opened a void and quickly retreated. The demonism's black thunderbolt harmlessly passed through the spot where Kronos had been just a moment ago. Kronos reappeared near the demonism's left ankle. I felt like everything had been stolen from me. My throne, divine domains, power. I hated the bastards who took them all away from me. I detested them. I was filled with thoughts of revenge. Those ungrateful bastards. As their father, I would punish them. That's what I thought then. He cut the demonism's left ankle off. Whoosh! One of the demonism's knees hit the ground. As the world of Kronos' conscious mind fluctuated once more, Kronos moved like a black wind and lacerated the demonism's left leg relentlessly, as though he were dismantling something. Open hollow corner bracket. Damn it. Thinking that he would be in real danger if he didn't act, the demonism brought out all his powers. The dense darkness that flowed out of him started roiling and boiling. But then, ever since I met Rhea again, I began to think whether or not I should direct my hate to my children or other people. Bam, 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 the opaque darkness stretched out like tentacles as it chased after the black wind, trying to catch up at all costs. However, Kronos cut them all off with scythe and severed the demonism's other ankle. Pure darkness oozed out of the numerous wounds along the demonism's gigantic body, increasing in amount until it overwhelmed the demonism's opaque darkness and tried to pull the demonism into death. My thoughts started to change little by little after Yi and Wu and Jungwoo were born. The demonism started spreading his opaque darkness all over the place, and the lightning strikes grew more intense, the storm winds blowing more fiercely. The calamities rained down more frequently. However, Kronos managed to escape the attacks and push the demonism into a corner. The demonism released more opaque darkness, shrinking as he did so. Furthermore, the more darkness that the demonism used, the faster his synchronization with Kronos would be released. Flash! Kronos stood in front of the demonism. I finally found out in the end. It's never the children's fault. I was the biggest problem. Open hollow corner bracket. Kronos. Next, it was because of you. Open hollow corner bracket. I'll kill you. Even now, thinking about it, I still grind my teeth. My insanity was all you're doing, right? Open hollow corner bracket. The demonism could no longer hear Kronos' words. His rage made him only think of killing Kronos, the being who had turned him into such a pitiful entity. Even though he tried to re-establish his existence by consuming the egos of the various gods, he was still a vestige body with more instincts than reason, and at this point, he lost even his reason. On the other hand, despite the fact that Kronos was also a vestige body, his eyes were calm and collected. Whoosh! The demonism reached out to grab Kronos. So, you should compensate me for all those lost years. Kronos slammed scythe down with a cold smile, its tip piercing through the demonism's left eye. Bam! The demonism screamed more loudly than ever. He had never imagined this much pain before. Instinctively, the demonism raised his other hand and covered his face, the opaque darkness dripping between his fingers. However, without any hesitation, Kronos relentlessly swung scythe once more, cutting off the demonism's fingers like wheat and ripping his other eye apart. Open hollow corner bracket. Where are you? Where? With his vision gone, the demonism's senses were disturbed, and he began to move in an erratic manner. The demonism did not seem to know what to do with the difference in power. He had a power level that allowed him to easily consume Azrael of Malak, and yet, he was helpless against Kronos' attacks. It was like a one-sided massacre. Since the demonism had always had the upper hand, he was unprepared for this. However, Kronos, who had once been a king of gods with enormous divine power and divine abilities, had fallen so drastically that he had even been imprisoned in Tartarus. When he reincarnated as a mortal with a finite lifespan over and over, he experienced what it meant to accumulate legends. These legends could not easily be dismissed. They had been built with tears, hardship, and relationships. These trials and experiences allowed him to wield his own sword and carve his own path. Kronos was confident that the legends he'd built as a mortal could easily compare to the ones he had built up as a king of gods. He might have had greater achievements as a king of gods, but the experiences and challenges he'd gone through to create his legends as a mortal were in no way inferior. That was how difficult his lives on Earth had been. All this had been possible because of his deep-seated resentment of the demonism. This moment was joyous for Kronos. He had finally caught the guy who had turned his life into such a mess, the guy who ruined his family. The sword he'd made and sharpened on Earth was now aimed at the demonism. He was going to cut off this cancerous tumor. And in the future that I saw, there was a vague image. Kronos gripped Scythe tightly with both hands. The veins on his forearm bulged. The image of you being ruined. Swoosh. Scythe cut the demonism from his bottom to top. More than half of the demonism's head exploded. I'll kill you. I will kill you, Kronos. The last bits of the demonism's reason were completely blown away. However, he made a desperate decision. If he didn't act, he would only be toyed with before he was destroyed. What could he do? There was only one thing. Die together. If he could shatter the world of Kronos' conscious mind, everything would return to a paused state. Rumble. The demonism's body swelled up like a balloon. Kronos no longer attacked the demonism and moved far away to Yi and Wu. In the end, he's following the exact path that we expected. Crazy bastard. Kronos gritted his teeth. Kronos had tried to eliminate the demonism before the demonism could self-destruct, but the demonism's body was so large that Kronos couldn't find the demonism's essence. He racked his brain, wondering what he could do to stop the demonism from self-destructing. Kronos could feel his son's silent gaze on him. Why are you staring at me with so much respect? Yi and Wu realized his mistake and turned his head away, trying to hide his embarrassment as much as possible. What are you going to do? The world is going to be completely destroyed. Ha ha ha, I'm well aware of my own greatness. If you want to look at me with admiration, feel free to do so to your heart's content. It was clear that Yi and Wu's father was a narcissist, and Yi and Wu wondered how he could have missed that until now. He did not respond, and instead, he asked a question while looking at the demonism, who looked like he would burst at any moment. If we're trapped, both you and I will be in danger. This was why the world of a conscious mind was scary and dangerous. One might be able to get in somehow, but one risked the elimination of one's existence or being forcefully assimilated. However, Kronos grinned as if he had no worries at all. He turned and slashed at the air with Scythe. A void opened. Although nothing could be seen beyond it, it seemed like a door leading back to reality. You go ahead. Yi and Wu's eyes widened. Father, what are you going to do? Me, I'm staying, of course. What? That bastard won't die like this. As long as there is a cloud system called darkness, that guy will inevitably reappear. When he takes possession of this body of mine, it will be a real disaster. Shouldn't that be prevented? Kronos was saying that he was the only one who could block the demonism. Of course, they could just leave the demonism trapped in Tartarus, but Yi and Wu understood the meaning behind his father's words. This was the world where they were in. Kronos wasn't just talking about Yi and Wu and his younger brother. He also meant the siblings Yi and Wu hadn't known he had, Zeus and the others. Kronos was worried about all his other children who had gone into the place below Tartarus, Erebus. I know you'll come up with a solution. Once you do that, you can come back to kill this guy. No, I don't like it. Yi and Wu cut Kronos' words off. Kronos' eyes widened slightly. You, don't try to persuade me. Just as you did whatever you wanted to do, I will do whatever I want to do. Yi and Wu had been through this before. Persephone and the machinations of the Titans and Gigantes had made him scramble out of Tartarus. Then, Alpharon had blocked Dis Pluto, who rescued him and pushed them into taking their own lives. Go through that again. Yi and Wu had just seen his father again, and now he had to sacrifice this person that he was only now truly getting to know. Yi and Wu would not allow it. Even if he died, or worse, Yi and Wu wanted to be with Kronos. His sharp eyes were filled with stubbornness and defiance. Kronos looked at his serious son and burst into laughter. Rhea, maybe you were right. Among the children, Yi and Wu does seem to resemble me the most. However, if Yi and Wu stayed, they would be buried here together. What could they do? Kronos looked at Scythe silently. He was wondering whether he could aim for the demonism's essence with one last swing. If he still possessed his divine domain of time, he was sure he could do it, but without that domain, he couldn't be certain. Father, do you have any regrets about losing the throne? Suddenly, Yi and Wu asked a strange question. Kronos cocked his head slightly, wondering what Yi and Wu meant. Then, he grinned when he realized what Yi and Wu was planning. He laughed. No regrets about the past. All I want is to live with Rhea, you, and Jungwoo again back on Earth. Then, I will take the throne. This meant that Yi and Wu would become the supreme god of Olympus. I don't think Zeus will easily give his seat up, do you? I'll take care of that myself. Do what you want, I can't take sides, so I'll just cheer from afar. Then, please buy me a few minutes. No problem. Whoosh, Kronos turned into a black wind once again and attacked the demonism. It was dangerous not knowing when the demonism might explode, but Kronos continued to slash at the demonism from all directions to buy Yi and Wu some time. Yi and Wu's eyes narrowed. If I do this, I might be able to eliminate the demonism, but after that, I will have a lot of things to carry on my shoulders. Yi and Wu had always had one, and only one, goal, to recover his brother's soul. Taking on something else would be a large burden for him. After all, he'd only reformed Arthea to help him achieve his ultimate goal. However, things had changed. But then, Yi and Wu thought that maybe this had been inevitable, anyway. It might have been his fate all along. From the time he formed a bond with Hermes and Athena, from the time he was asked to take the throne of death by his older brother, Hades, and from the time his father had sacrificed for his children. Everything led to one place. Yi and Wu wanted to inherit everything from Kronos. As his son, Yi and Wu felt this was the natural thing to do. Devour. Lumps appeared along his hand. Hades' spirit-eating sword is attempting to devour Kronos. His goal was to devour the world of Kronos' conscious mind and Kronos' true body. All of it. If he could pull this off, not only would he be able to eliminate the demonism, he would also monopolize all the legacies Kronos left behind.